Are you ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hello, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. I'm John Funn, sitting in for Steve, who's off today. We want you to call us at 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. And we're going to have a great show for you today. Joining us now is Christopher Hahn, progressive pundit, and former senior aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York. Chris, glad to have you on the program.
Great to be here, John. Nice to hear from you.
Well, Chris, I know it's the dog days of August, and politics isn't on the foremost issue on most people's minds, but things are still happening. Things are happening out there with Hillary, with the Republicans, with Congress, with the budget crisis, President Obama. Tell us in general, how you view the political situation in America today.
You know, I think that it's the calm before the storm in the political situation. It's really, everybody's asking themselves on both sides of the aisle, will there be a government shutdown when we reach a point where we have to make some decisions on both the budget and on the debt ceiling? And I think that the establishment Republicans in Washington, D.C., fear this the most because regardless of how it's spun by them, they're going to be blamed for it. And I know that most establishment Republicans that I've talked to don't want to see that happen. But the Tea Party, Rand Paul types are looking to do that. Marco Rubio, who has generally been been able to work with most of the Democrats in the Senate, is feeling the need to be a leader in this government shutdown push because of the backlash he took for doing immigration. So I think you're going to see a real fight in September over this. I think that's what people are talking about, at least the people I talk to are talking about in Washington right now. Calm before the storm, not a lot going on, but come September, it's going to be off to the races, and that's going to be the issue.
Well, if you're right and the Republican rank and file in Congress want a government shutdown or a government confrontation over, let's say, Obamacare or something else, they still have to convince the Republican leadership in the Senate and the House that that's the right strategy, because, leaders can basically do what they want on the Senate floor or on the House floor. Do you think the Republican leadership isn't so inclined to do exactly what you suggest the rank and file want to do, confrontation?
Oh, I don't think the Republican leadership wants to see that at all. I just don't know that the Republican leadership controls its caucus. And there are some affirmative steps that need to be taken to avoid a government shutdown, or at least a partial shutdown, or at least a default on the debt. And when it comes to the debt ceiling, you have to affirmatively raise the debt ceiling at some point. When it comes to a shutdown, we could do continuing resolutions as we continue to have done for years now in Washington. And there are certain mechanisms to keep certain parts of the government open. But there are some affirmative steps that need to be taken, and the Republicans are threatening to not take those steps, which would lead ultimately to a government shutdown. The Republican leadership does not want to do that. They understand the ramifications. They remember what happened when Newt Gingrich did it. There is no question on their minds who will be blamed for it. And if that happens, God forbid that happens, they're going to be in big trouble in the local elections in 2013, and they could lose seats in the midterms in 2014, which would be unprecedented.
Well, no, Bill Clinton managed to.
Yes, no, I thought of that the minute I said it.
let me just ask you this though. Let's assume you're right, but there's also problems on the other side. Latest Gallup poll shows President Obama's approval on the economy falling to 35%. His overall job approval 41% or 42%. The economy doesn't seem to be responding to the president's summer initiatives. What's going wrong with the economy and the public's perception, and what can President Obama do to try to change that?
Well, the president is now, well into his second term, and his approval, the economy has not rebounded completely from where it was when he took over. And you're going to start to see him having less and less influence domestically. You know this, John. I don't need to tell you. President's second terms, you really got 18 months. I think this president had about a year to get things going. And, in the last 8 months or so, he hasn't really been able to get a lot going on the economy and on his domestic policy agenda. So I think from now on, the president's going to have to turn his attention and his legacy towards foreign policy matters and try to get some wins there, because he's going to have few and far between here on domestic policy issues. That said, he's still great on the stump, and he's going to be a big factor.
Well, yes, but foreign policy success is the most pressing need right now is the Middle East. How does one pull a foreign policy success out of a hat that's named Egypt?
Man, John, if I knew that, I'd be making a lot more money than I am today.
Well, you'd be our ambassador there probably, which would be a fun job, right?
I'd be
right. Listen,
United Nations.
What do you make of Chris Christie's speech to the Republican National Committee, saying that the party basically has a choice? It can either be a debating society and discuss philosophy, or it can go out and win elections. And he looks like he took a couple of shots at two of his potential rivals, the Republican presidential nomination, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal and Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky.
I think he's absolutely right. And I think the Republican Party, if they want to be competitive in 2016, will nominate that guy. He's a damn good politician, and he's a guy who appeals to people down the middle. I fear him more than anybody else in the Republican Party, anybody else.
Well, the problem is with that kind of endorsement, a lot of Republican primary voters listening to this program will say, well, he's giving us advice, we'll do something else because he wants Chris Christie.
Well, I'm a professional pundit now. I don't really work for any particular candidate at the moment.
You got your analyst hat on.
I'm giving good, sound political advice. And the one guy mentioned on the national stage in the Republican Party that has any chance of getting elected president of the United States is Chris Christie.
The one guy.
Marco Rubio might be there in some senses of the word, but if he goes through with the government shutdown, he's out. But Chris Christie has a real chance. He's a no-nonsense, no-hold-bar politician who's got a good record on some moderate issues, who's governed a blue state effectively.
Now, one other thing that came out of the Republican National Committee meeting in Boston this week was there was today a unanimous resolution passed from the Republican National Committee saying we really oppose these Hillary movie projects that CNN and NBC are putting on. What's your take on that?
I think they're making a big mistake. These guys are all political people who've worked on campaigns, and one thing political people on campaigns want to do is control the message. And, I don't think that the greatness of Hillary Clinton is what these movies are going to be about. I think you're going to hear about Monica Lewinsky. You're going to hear about, I can't remember the guy's name who killed himself.
No, the problem is this. The NBC movie begins in 1998 after all of those scandals other than Monica Lewinsky had already gone by the board. So it's purposefully selective so that most of what Hillary got in trouble with in the 1990s won't be even covered.
Yeah, you know what, though? I don't know how you make a movie.
They're doing it.
I don't know how you make a movie that people are going to watch without putting salacious details into it.
Well, no, Monica Lewinsky will substitute for all the other scandals, and that wasn't her scandal, that was Bill's scandal. So she'll be the long-suffering martyr who had to endure this fellow.
I want to control the message when I run a campaign, and I don't want a guy who's directed the Kennedy movie, and the documentarian has directed some really hard-hitting documentaries.
From the left.
Well, yeah, but he's in it to make a movie. And these guys want to make a movie that people are going to want to watch. And the Hillary Clinton victory movie is not the movie they want to watch. And I think.
Oh, come on. I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. There are women all over America who view Hillary as a heroic figure for what she went through.
These guys have made movies that they put millions of dollars into movies. Like, remember the Kennedy movie? They put $20 million into it, the Discovery Channel did, or the History Channel. And then they didn't even want to air it because it was so bad. So I think
it did very well on Starz Network. It got good ratings there. I think the History Channel dropped it because of pressure from the Kennedy family.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think what you're going to see here is you're giving NBC at least an excuse to drop this movie, which they probably will at some point, because who's going to want to watch it? If it's just a fluff piece on Hillary, nobody's going to want to watch it. They're going to want to tune in for the dirty details, and the Republican Party should understand that, and they should also understand, Reince Priebus, this is the thing about him. The guy, I don't understand how he's still the chairman of the Republican Party. He can't win an election to save his life, and he doesn't understand that candidates need to control the message, and by allowing a film producer who wants the salacious details to put the message and have final cut on this movie, well, that's not good. And I don't think the Clinton people want to see that movie come out, and Republicans are doing the best to make sure it doesn't.
Chris, I want to segue into one other thing that you know very well, which is New York politics. In a few days, we're going to have a major primary in New York City to select successor to Mayor Michael Bloomberg. The real action is in the Democratic primary. Lots of candidates. How do you handicap that race and how it's going?
Well, I think, on the mayor's side, there's going to definitely be a runoff. I think the one person I'm sure will be in the runoff is Christine Quinn.
The Speaker
And
of the
then
New
you'll
York
have to
City
see
Council.
whether it's Bill Thompson or former Comptroller Bill Thompson or the public advocate Bill de Blasio could be the other candidate there. Right now, Bill de Blasio's got a little bit of momentum. It's looking like him, but I do not believe it. I think that Thompson is going to get the edge, and he'll make it into the runoff. And it'll be a very interesting runoff between Thompson and Quinn. There are some people out there saying that Thompson just doesn't have the fire in his belly after he lost the mayoralty 4 years ago. He went into the private sector, made a lot of money, and is very comfortable and happy in those roles that he's had. And he hasn't been really putting his heart in it. He's just been pushed into it by people who thought he should have won 4 years ago. So there's a lot of that talk. But I don't believe that either. I've seen him out on the trail. I think he's doing a great job. Anthony Weiner won't be a factor in the final vote here.
Would he have had a chance if he hadn't had the scandal redux, the Part D?
I think he would have. I think he was the most dynamic of the candidates out there. I'm not saying that these are bad people. They all have good experience, but Anthony Weiner is a dynamic speaker who captures people's attention. And had he been able to kind of fully recover, he would have been a factor. He would have made it into a runoff and would have been a major factor here. Would have killed de Blasio. De Blasio would have had no chance at all. So you would have definitely had a Quinn, perhaps Thompson runoff, or maybe a Quinn Weiner runoff. So that's the case. Elliot Spitzer is going to get elected controller of the state of New York.
Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it depends. I mean, look, Elliot Spitzer was a very good attorney general.
He lost most of his cases.
Well,
he did.
He forced people into, don't talk about the wins and the losses. There were a lot of.
Do you want a prosecutor who loses a bunch of cases, which means that he shouldn't have prosecuted them?
With Wall Street and with some other firms were very important. There are a lot of people who were affected by him. Look,
affected by him, they were dragged into court and unfairly because they were acquitted. I mean, do you want a prosecutor who basically makes more mistakes than he makes correct calls?
You're making me defend Elliot Spitzer.
Well, you are.
If you know anything about my politics, I've never been an Elliot Spitzer guy.
Well, maybe you should agree with me rather than try to.
I was kind of Swazi's guy. I was involved with the primary against him for governor. But it's look, I'm not an Elliot Spitzer guy, and I do agree with you on most cases. That said, he's going to win because people don't show up to vote in primaries for comptroller of the city of New York. They come out to vote for mayor, and there's a lot of attention on the mayor's race. And then they're going to say, who are these two guys running for comptroller? Oh, Elliot Spitzer. I remember him.
Well, actually, I wanted to ask you something else. The latest Quinnipiac poll, which shows Spitzer with a big lead, has some fascinating demographic breakdowns. Basically, Spitzer would be behind his opponent right now if African Americans weren't voting. But he has a big lead, over 2-1 among African Americans. Is there something I'm missing here as to why African Americans would be so supportive of Elliot Spitzer? Because he's not exactly been a leader in the civil rights movement.
He hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't gone out of his way. But that said, it's also a community that tends to forgive people from scandals better.
Like Charlie Rangel, the congressman from Harlem, for example.
Like Bill Clinton, the president of the United States. I mean, they look what he did was a personal scandal. I think what he did was worse than what Anthony Weiner's done. Anthony Weiner's thing, is creepy or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, Anthony Weiner didn't break any laws.
Well, Chris, I want to ask you one final question. Because Republicans have sex scandals too, Democrats have sex scandals.
Yeah, Bitterswap with the prostitute got reelected as a family values conservative in Louisiana.
But my point is this: people always say it's just a personal matter, but think about this: anyone in public office, high public office, who does these things subject themselves to blackmail, and we have seen people do amazing things to try to cover up these scandals. If they're subject to blackmail, shouldn't voters be concerned about it?
Yeah, of course they should be.
Well, that's no longer a personal issue only, right? If they're subject to blackmail in their official duties.
You make an excellent point. That said, the libertarian side of me, and I know you don't believe that there's any of it, the libertarian side of me thinks that prostitution should be legal. I mean, get rid of the underground portion of it that's forcing women into poverty. But women who are consenting adults and want to do this a living, and men for that matter, maybe they should have that opportunity.
Anyway, Chris, the problem with that, of course, is even if prostitution were legal, people would still try to cover it up because there's a lot of social opprobrium attached to it that has nothing to do with the illegality of it, and people would still be subject to blackmail.
And you're absolutely right. I think that's another problem in our society.
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much, Chris Hahn, who's a political strategist and former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer of New York. Thanks for being with us, and go back to that game and do well.
Hey, thanks, John. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. This is John Funn sitting in for Steve Malzberg on the Steve Malzberg Show.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
If you're a baby boomer or senior, please listen closely to this important message. Politicians in Washington are quietly plotting to decrease your Social Security payments drastically, and they want to do it soon. In fact, despite rising prices at the gas pump, grocery store, and doctor's office, retirees have received a mere 1.3% annual increase to their Social Security checks. Meanwhile, food stamp recipients have seen their payouts increase over 30% under the Obama administration. That's shocking. So when we stumbled upon a weird trick that could add up to $1,000 to your monthly Social Security checks, we knew we had to share it with you. To get started, simply go to SocialSecurityFree.com. Yes, it's true. You can take simple steps that could add up to $1,000 to your monthly Social Security payouts. Newsmax says SocialSecurityFree.com is a critical resource for anyone over 50. Go to SocialSecurityFree.com.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at Aftershock911.com. Aftershock911.com.
Heart disease is the biggest killer disease in America, and this doesn't surprise me. We are addicted to starches, sugars, fatty meats, and salt. People who live in countries with little heart disease eat very differently. One way some people stay heart healthy is by following what is known as the caveman or Stonehenge diet, so named because of its similarity to the way our prehistoric ancestors ate. People who follow this type of diet live off local fruits and root vegetables and get their protein mostly from fish and wild game they shoot themselves. Now, since most of us don't hunt or fish for all our protein, here are some simple tips on how you can start to eat like a caveman, modern-day style. First, fill up on fruits and vegetables. Eat them first and you'll be less hungry. Feast on fish, which is rich in nutrients but not in calories. Choose fatty fish like mackerel, herring, sardines, and salmon, which are rich in heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Get out and go for a walk. Remember, our ancestors were hunters and gatherers, so they didn't spend their time sitting in front of a TV or computer all day. If you live more like a caveman or a cave woman, your heart will love you for it. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thank you for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
We're
can you find the Steve Malzberg Show?
Everywhere.
From your smartphone to satellite radio
To Newsmax Live TV.
to Roku.
We have you covered. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hi, I'm John Funn, sitting in for Steve Malzberg. I just wanted to add a postscript to the interview you just heard with Chris Hahn, former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York. And we were discussing the problems of an Anthony Weiner or a Elliot Spitzer, two former public officials who had to resign in disgrace after sexual indiscretions. And Chris Hahn made the point, well, these are personal scandals. A lot of voters don't care about them. They compartmentalize them and put them to one side away from a politician's public duties. But, as I pointed out, if you do something that stupid, and let's testify that Elliot Spitzer and Anthony Weiner were that stupid, you subject yourself to blackmail. We saw this in the 1998 Monica Lewinsky scandal. The real scandal wasn't what happened between the two of them. The real scandal was Bill Clinton subjected himself to blackmail. And in fact, in the Ken Starr report released later that year, they reported on a conversation that Clinton had had with Monica Lewinsky, which has never been disputed, in which Clinton said, you know, Monica, we have been tapped by foreign powers who have listened into our conversations on unsecure phone lines. They know about all of this. We're in trouble. We have to come up with a cover story. The cover story was they were just play acting and none of it was real. Well, that wasn't going to fly. But Bill Clinton spent months trying to prevent the country from knowing what the truth was. If a foreign power had tried to blackmail him, it would have been perhaps even more serious. This is John Funn, and please stay with us because we'll have Congressman Marsha Blackburn coming up discussing the effort to delay the implementation of Obamacare. John Funn reporting for Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
If your prostate is giving you problems and your doc says it's just part of getting older, be wary. Renowned physician and author Dr. David Brownstein thinks this is baloney. He's discovered a link between aging and prostate health and believes prostate concerns do not have to be an inevitable part of aging. That's why he created Prostate Revive.
Hi, I'm Dr. David Brownstein. I personally formulated Prostate Revive to include the most essential natural ingredients available to help promote a healthy prostate gland and optimal urinary function.
The producers of Dr. Brownstein's Prostate Revive are so thrilled with the positive feedback from satisfied customers that for a limited time, they are willing to send you your first month's supply free. Plus, call now and you'll also receive Dr. Brownstein's special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. For details on getting your free bottle, call 1-800-596-REVIVE. That's 1-800-596-REVIVE. Take control with Prostate Revive. Call now while supplies last to claim your risk-free bottle at 1-800-596-REVIVE.
Obama wants your money, and he's determined to get it. He wants your money to buy off unions, his Wall Street cronies, and to expand the Obama welfare nation. Well, Swiss America is determined to stop him from stealing your money. They want to send you an award-winning film, I Want Your Money, on DVD that exposes his plan. It'll help keep the government's hands off your money using gold, silver, and other hard asset strategies to protect your hard-earned money. Call today and request the DVD, I Want Your Money, normally $19.95, yours absolutely free. Let Swiss America show you how to use gold, silver, and other hard assets to protect your hard-earned money. Call now. 800-978-3907. 800-978-3907. Call Swiss America right now. Learn all about investing in gold. 800-978-3907. That's 800-978-3907. Call right now. Health insurance is on everybody's mind right now. You either don't have it, or you have it and you think it's too expensive. And you probably feel like you don't have any options. We can help. We are InSphere Insurance Solutions. We offer health insurance plans from major carriers nationwide and likely have a plan that can save you money. Whether you're self-employed, on a COBRA plan that's about to expire, or you simply don't have health insurance where you work and you need it, InSphere Insurance Solutions can help you. Our agents will help you find coverage you can afford. InSphere Insurance Solutions is an authorized agency in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia. Plans may not be available in all states. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325. 800-980-9325.
Are payday loans ruining your life? If you have 2 or more payday loan cash advances, listen closely. You may be eligible for a program that payday loan companies don't want you to know about.
This program will get payday loan companies out of your bank account and put an end to the payday loan nightmare. Call for free information and find out if Payday Loan Support Center is right for you. Payday loan companies usually trap you into paying rates as high as 700%. We understand payday lenders' tactics. Don't let them take advantage of you anymore. All you need is 2 or more payday loans to qualify. We can help even if you're behind in collections or have bad credit.
Internet payday loans qualify for this program as well. So call 800-250-5084. That's 800-250-5084. The call is free and the consultation is free. Don't miss out. Call for your free information on payday loan relief. 800-250-5084. That's 800-250-5084. Again, 800-250-5084.
This is not your typical Screamfest talk show.
No.
This is the next generation of talk radio. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hi, this is John Funn sitting in today for Steve Malzberg. Welcome to Newsmax TV. Call us now at 855-777-9600 if you'd like to join in the conversation. And our next guest is Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn from the state of Tennessee. She is a leader on tax issues, a leader on issues of privacy for Americans, and also a leader on Obamacare's implementation. And she's a staunch opponent of putting it into place. Welcome, Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn.
It is good to be with you, John, and hope you are having a great day. And I'm sure you've got a lot of listeners who are really concerned about what's happening with Obamacare.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'll be in Nashville in mid-October speaking at a conference sponsored by Art Laffer, your good friend, and I look forward to perhaps seeing you there.
Absolutely.
So we're 6 weeks away from Obamacare's first implementation. What do we know about how it's going, and what do Americans need to know about what will happen on October 1st when the health care exchanges that the federal government is going to set up in states, in various states, actually start accepting customers?
Well, this is what we know, is that this is a very rocky rollout, and what has surprised me is the way the liberal press has come around and said, you know, things are not going really well with that. We agree. And because of that, we think that when you look at the problems that exist with the exchanges, the problems with all these navigators, indeed the problems with eligibility requirements and the expectation, the preliminary expectation of ID theft and scam artists that are having a heyday right now, calling people, getting all their personal identifying information, cleaning out their bank accounts, running up their credit cards, and people think that they're talking to somebody who's going to help them with their health care during this transition.
Well, wait a second. These navigators that you mentioned, who are these people? Who's hiring them, and what access to our records could they have? I'm not quite sure.
Well, what is happening with that, you have navigators that will replace your health insurance agent or health insurance broker. It's basically federalizing the health insurance.
So these
business.
people are going to be hired by the Obama administration.
That's exactly right. But see, the interesting thing on this, John, is you cannot be employed by an insurance company or have insurance background to be a navigator. But if you are a union member, you will be given preferential treatment in hiring. So these are, and the other thing with this is, with these very loose eligibility requirements, we don't know what kind of security clearance they're given, but yet they're going to be tasked with working door to door, individually contacting citizens, getting all of their private information and signing them up for a health care plan. So that system is just ripe for abuse, for identity theft, it is also ripe for these navigators going and cutting a deal with some insurance agent and funneling business their direction into a specific plan. So we're concerned about that. We're concerned about the Medicaid expansion, also about these exchange subsidies. The exchange prices are coming in higher than had been anticipated. There are fewer options in the exchanges than had been anticipated. So those are all the knowns that we have.
Well, wait a second, Congresswoman. Now, I happen to know that when the IRS hires people on short-term assignments, they do a criminal background check. The U.S. Census, when it goes out and counts the rest of us, puts criminal background checks on many people. Are you saying it's not clear that the navigators, people hired for this job with access to tax and Social Security records, won't have criminal background checks?
I am saying that is not clear, nor is it clear what kind of training they are going to have. And we're very concerned about those navigators, their work with individuals and with the exchanges, and we're concerned about the exchange subsidies. So we have a four-step process to making certain that we get rid of Obamacare finally at some point in the near future. But the first step on that, John, is to delay implementation of the bill.
Well, the Obama administration is trying to help you out. They keep delaying things piecemeal, so you just want to say full stop to the whole thing for a while.
Yeah, it's fair. It's a fairness issue. It is fair to everybody if you go in and you delay the whole thing. If they're delaying bits and pieces of it, the employer mandate, the out-of-pocket expenses, those caps, delaying all these different portions. They've agreed to repeal the 1099 provisions and the Class Act, and instead of them taking unconstitutional or unauthorized actions of doing these delays themselves, we're saying, look, let's delay the whole thing for a year. And that allows us to stop all of the taxes, the mandates, put a halt to these subsidies, put a halt to the hiring that would be done to stand this program up, and then take the next year, and that way we can go in and defund this. We can continue to repeal provisions. We can continue to replace pieces of Obamacare with free, market-oriented, patient-centered provisions, and we think that that's the wiser step.
But Congresswoman, there's a big move in the Senate by some members there, Mike Lee of Utah, Ted Cruz of Texas being among them. They say we can't wait even a few weeks. We have to have a confrontation with the president to say we're not going to pass a continuing resolution past September 30th that will fund basic government programs unless we get a delay or a rollback of Obamacare. Can that strategy work? Is it viable? And should that be something that should be pursued in both the Senate and the House?
Well, the way the approach would work would be first a delay, and then you're able to defund it and prohibit them from reprogramming money. And John, that's what they've been doing, is reprogramming money, because the continuing resolution we're operating under predates Obamacare. So we think that, yes, it is viable to look at delaying this program so that you're halting all the benefits and you're halting the taxes, the penalties, the fees, the mandates. Put a halt to the whole thing.
Well, all I'm hearing in the media,
we think that's workable.
Well, all I'm hearing in the media from reporters and from Democrats in Congress is, if you do that, it'll be just like the government shutdown of 1995 and 96. The Republicans will get the blame for it. The president will come out on top, and you'll have destroyed your credibility with regard to budget issues because you'll have shut down basic government services people depend upon. How in the world would that work out in a PR way?
Well, I think the thing that we're looking at is, first of all, not having to shut the government down. And I think the president would probably like that, because in a government shutdown, the congressional branch hands the checkbook over to the administrative branch. And having a major military post in my district, I have tremendous concern about doing that. I have a tremendous concern about them taking more money from DOD and putting it to stand up Obamacare. So we would like not to get to that point, but I think what we want to do is have the White House work with us on first the delay, and then that would allow us to look at defunding. You have to be able to halt these programs and halt the taxes so that you can come around and do the defunding that you're hearing about from some of our friends in the Senate. It's a good fight. It is a worthy fight. The American people do not like this program. They don't want this program. And we join them in that opposition. And I have to tell you, the opposition to Obamacare is bipartisan opposition.
Well, actually, you experienced something that rarely happens in the state of Tennessee a few years ago. You had a version of a government-run healthcare system called TennCare for poor people, and the costs went so out of control, you were actually able to roll it back and basically eliminate it and substitute much more flexible programs. Can you briefly go into what happened with TennCare? It was a battle you won against all odds.
We did win it against all odds. And here is what happened. When it came on the books in early 95, January 1 of 95, it was to be a Medicaid managed care program. It was to replace and offset a traditional care. It was the test case for Hillary Clinton health care. So Tennessee embarked on this venture. Within 5 years, the program had quadrupled in cost. In 2006, a Democrat governor, Phil Bredesen, started working on reforming this program. And by middle 2007, he had removed nearly 300,000 people from the program. He did that because it had grown to be 35.3% of the state's budget.
What?
Unsustainable. 35.3% of the state's budget. Now, as you will remember, John, from 99 to 02, we had a 4-year battle against the imposition of a state income tax in our state. The reason they wanted to impose a state income tax
for TennCare.
Was to pay for TennCare.
So that's a big success story that shows that you can take a major government entitlement program and roll it back. Well, listen,
That's right.
Congresswoman Blackburn, we love having you. Keep up the good fight, and thanks for joining us today on the Steve Malzberg program. And best wishes, and have a great rest of your summer break from Congress.
Thank you so much. Good to be with you.
Thank you. This is John Funn sitting in for Steve Malzberg, and please stay with us because we will have another segment coming up in just a moment.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Drug, alcohol, and gambling addiction can be devastating for you and your loved ones. Don't let the disease of addiction ruin everything you've worked so hard for. The Treatment Helpline has helped thousands of people just like you take control of their addictions and live healthier, cleaner, and happier lives. You are not alone. Now there's hope. The Treatment Helpline has helped people just like you overcome their addiction. If you or a loved one is suffering from a drug, alcohol, or gambling addiction, let us help you today. Call 1-800-813-9821. Our seasoned addiction treatment professionals can show you how to use your private health insurance to help cover the costs of this life-changing program. Call now and get a free confidential consultation. 1-800-813-9821. That's 1-800-813-9821. Help is only a phone call away. Call 1-800-813-9821. That's 1-800-813-9821.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. Folks ask me, what would Ronald Reagan do if he were with us today? I believe the first thing he'd do is stop Obamacare. Already it's in effect with higher taxes, hidden fees, skyrocketing insurance rates, big Medicare cuts, and some insurance plans are hit with a 40% tax. Protect yourself by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law, giving you the strategies, tips, and loopholes you need to know. If you're insured on Medicare, a business owner, a medical professional, just about anyone, you need this book. Get the #1 bestseller, the Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price.
Scroll down now to claim your copy of Obamacare Survival Guide for the special internet offer of only $4.95.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Judging from everything you hear, you think all cholesterol is bad, but that's not really true. You need a certain amount of cholesterol to maintain good health. The problem is that too much cholesterol in your blood contributes to a plaque, a fatty substance that narrows the coronary arteries that feed blood flow to your heart. Picture your coronary arteries as a 4-lane highway. If one lane becomes blocked, traffic still flows well. 2 lanes, no major problem. But if a 3rd lane becomes blocked, that spells trouble. It's the same way with your coronary arteries. And when plaque slows their blood flow to your heart, this can even cause a heart attack. The good news is that when it comes to cholesterol, lifestyle changes can pay off big time. Even a small reduction in plaque can be like opening up another highway lane. Suddenly, blood flow that was stalled can go forward again. Changing your lifestyle does not have to be hard. And in fact, here are 3 ways to help you start lowering your cholesterol. Snack on nuts. Nuts are probably one of the easiest and tastiest ways to lower cholesterol. Walnuts and almonds are among the best. Bulk up your diet with fiber. Choose whole fruits instead of a fruit juice, brown rice instead of white, and if you're eating a baked potato, be sure to leave the skin on. Choose fish. Fish contains cholesterol-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
The Steve Malzberg Show is just a bit different from the other radio shows. We have TV cameras. Watch the show at Newsmax.com or listen on your favorite radio station. Here's Steve Malzberg.
Hi, I'm John Funn, sitting in for Steve Malzberg. Please call us if you'd like to join the conversation. The number is 855-777-9660. We just had a very interesting conversation with Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, who explained to us all of the problems that the first few weeks of Obamacare are likely to bring us, including navigators who are supposedly guides hired by the federal government to help people select a health plan through these exchanges that the federal government is setting up. And it turns out they may not even have criminal background checks, but they'll have access to your tax records, your Social Security information. Pretty frightening if it's true. Now, another thing that she mentioned was that the administration doesn't seem to be interested in solving the problem. They just say, well, we'll plow ahead, and we're not going to negotiate with the Republicans about making Obamacare better. We're just going to try to get through the next election and see if it can be so cemented in American life that we'll never be able to get rid of it. In fact, Congressman Gregory Meeks of New York City made a very interesting comment this week about the problems of Obamacare, which he acknowledged, and why they're unfair. Let's play that clip.
Social Security first came out, people didn't understand that completely. And when Medicare came out, people didn't understand that completely. But over time. We developed it and we got it right. You know, the fact of the matter is, when the Constitution came out, people didn't understand that. And there were problems in the Constitution. We didn't say get rid of the Constitution. We fixed it.
I just do not know where to begin. First of all, Medicaid is a program that's in near collapse. The states are being bankrupted by it. Just go to the state of Illinois. Just go to the state of California. Medicaid is substandard medicine. If I had a dog, I wouldn't take him to Medicaid for treatment. Medicaid has enormous cost overruns. Over 50% of physicians will no longer accept new Medicaid patients because, frankly, the reimbursement rates are so low, they're going to lose money on every patient. So to even compare the problems of Obamacare with Medicaid and say that we got Medicaid right, therefore we'll get Obamacare right, is just out of the twilight zone. As for the Constitution, confusing a law passed by Congress with not one vote to spare in the U.S. Senate, by I think 4 or 5 votes in the House, with our constitutional document that was ratified by the states, is just absurd. The Constitution is our governing document. In order to change it, we have enormous hurdles. You have to get a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress to add an amendment to the Constitution. It has to be narrowly focused on just one subject. You then have to take it to the states, and 38 out of the 50 states have to ratify that amendment before it becomes law. That's why we've had so few amendments to the Constitution. It's one reason why the liberals have turned to the courts to try to create new constitutional rights out of thin air, because they could never get them through Congress using the conventional methods. So Congressman Meeks is just, frankly, conflating a law with our governing document. And Obamacare won't work, therefore we are obligated to fix it. The Constitution can work, it is working when we adhere to it, and if there are changes to be made, there's a procedure by which we go about doing that. So to Congressman Meeks, I simply give the Boneheaded Statement of the Week award. Now, another outrage. You've probably heard that Jesse Jackson Jr., the son of the civil rights leader, well, he finally was sentenced in federal court along with his wife, who's a former Chicago alderwoman. That's the local official in Chicago in the neighborhoods. Congressman Jackson's story is a very sad one, and he's going to prison now for something like 2.5 years. His wife will go to prison for a year. She will not serve until after his sentence is finished because they have young children at home. And the congressman basically says, look, I made mistakes. There were campaign treasuries that I raided for making personal purchases, everything from a Michael Jackson memorabilia collection to a $43,000 Rolex watch. He basically plundered the money that his donors had given him to run for Congress. Well, the judge was not amused and sentenced him, saying all of this was his responsibility and he had to bear the consequences of it. Well, the real outrage is this. Congressman Jackson is exposed as a thief, and a federal court has so ruled and sent him to prison. But he has been diagnosed, at least by someone, as having a mood disorder. We would call it in technical terms bipolar disorder. And the federal government has classified him as disabled as a result. And believe it or not, while he will be sitting in prison, he will be earning $8,700 per month in disability payments. That's over $100,000 a year for sitting in prison. Now, I don't know about you, but I suspect many people in the audience today don't earn $100,000 a year, even if they have 2 incomes in the family. So this is outrageous. And it's even worse than that. After he gets out of prison, when he turns 65, he'll be eligible for a very generous congressional pension. Now, I know that people always get upset and angry about congressional pensions and congressional benefits. I myself believe, look, public service is not very remunerative. In fact, the actual value of a congressional salary, if you factor in inflation, is lower now than it's been since 1990. They basically just got cost of living increases, and in some years they haven't even taken that. So I'm not someone who's going to jump up in a soapbox and yell that Congress people are overpaid. But this tradition that you can be convicted of serious felonies, you can be convicted of debauching the federal treasury, you can be convicted of thievery, You can be convicted of serious felonies, and yet you get to keep all of your benefits from the job that you disgraced. I just find that's outrageous, and I think you probably would too. I don't see any reason why Jesse Jackson Jr. deserves over $100,000 a year in disability payments while he's sitting in prison. Now, maybe after he's out of prison, and maybe while he's trying to adjust to society and trying to find a way to earn an honest living for a change, maybe we could talk about that. You know, people do need help, and if he has a serious disability and it's agreed upon by medical specialists, fine. But until then, I'm sorry, Jesse Jackson is a felon, and he is going to prison. He gets 3 meals and a cot. I'm sure there will be medical treatment there for him. All federal prisons have facilities to treat both mental illness and physical illnesses, and he'll be taken care of. But $105,000 a year from we, the taxpayers, outrageous. And remember, this is, once again, I hate to bring this up, but it's true, once again an example of why Chicago politics and the Chicago way are so different from the way the rest of the country runs. I don't want to besmirch the good citizens of Chicago. On the other hand, there are fewer of them than ever before because so many of them are leaving because of the high taxes, the regulations, the incredible cost of living there, the highest sales tax in the country, over 10%. The city of Chicago gave us Barack Obama, a product of the Daily Machine. Now, Barack Obama didn't do anything while he was in Chicago politics that was illegal. He didn't do anything that I think was comparable to what Jesse Jackson did, but he did go along with the system. And the Chicago way is a way that we don't want to go. And one of the things we're seeing in all of the scandals surrounding the Obama administration is, well, this is what you get when you take someone from the Daily Machine. You can take them out of the Daily Machine and send them to Washington, but you can't take all of the habits of the Daily Machine and put them aside. Now, we're coming up for our next segment, and we're going to have a very interesting interview with somebody who's an expert on Egypt and all of those controversies. I'm John Funn for Newsmax TV. Please stay with us.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
This is the worst weather we've seen in quite some time, folks, and I don't see any end in sight. People have been calling in from across the state complaining their basements are flooding. One guy said he now has an indoor swimming pool in his basement. I told him he needs the waterproofing innovations from Basement Systems. If you want a dry basement or crawl space that will weather any kind of storm, you need the patented solutions from Basement Systems. You've seen them on home makeover shows throughout the country. With a lifetime warranty, every solution is custom designed for your basement. You can finally have that room you've always wanted with our total basement finishing system. Call now for a free estimate, and you'll never have to worry about storms like these again.
Call now for your free basement inspection at 800-516-9794, 800-516-9794. Learn how to waterproof your basement now. Call this number, 800-516-9794, 800-516-9794.
Tired of calls, levies, and liens from the IRS or hiring others who don't get the job done? Call Wall & Associates and you'll never talk to the IRS again. The IRS has a program to eliminate tax debt, and Wall & Associates professionals are trained to maximize its benefits for you. You always speak with a live person with real support and real knowledge. We've helped thousands of taxpayers like you settle their tax debt with the IRS for a fraction of what they owe. We solve tax problems. Call Wall & Associates now, 800-574-6029. We have the professionals who know how to solve tax problems. If you owe money to the IRS, your tax problems are not going away by themselves, and the passage of time will only make matters worse. Act now, before it's too late. Call Wall & Associates right now to speak to a professional tax relief agent. Call 800-574-6029. That's 800-574-6029. Again, 800-574-6029.
Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Now update. I'm John Bachman. Friday is the start of the weekend in Muslim countries, and it's also the day when believers participate in ritual prayers. But in Egypt today, many of those sermons are expected to be about the unrest with the government, and some are calling for more protests as well as a day of anger. But Egypt's government has authorized the use of deadly force against protesters who target police or government buildings. The potential for violence and even more deaths has been high throughout the day. The death toll from Wednesday's clashes has officially surpassed 600, and it continues to rise. And bodies now have been placed in mosques, which are acting as morgues.
My brother's number here at this makeshift morgue is 261. I know at least there's 261 bodies here.
On Wednesday, President Obama condemned the government's decision to crack down on protesters, and he announced that the U.S. would cancel biannual military exercises with Egypt that date back to 1981.
Our traditional cooperation cannot continue as usual when civilians are being killed in the streets and rights are being rolled back.
In response to President Obama, Egypt's government issued a statement late last night saying the president's position is not based on facts and it empowers violent militant groups, which causes further instability. Meanwhile, the price of crude oil continues to rise over concerns of a potential supply disruption as the violence in Egypt continues. Brent crude, a benchmark used to price imported oil purchased by many U.S. refineries, rose 5 cents to almost $110 a barrel. And in politics, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie gives a blunt warning to his fellow Republicans. Winning the next presidential election is far more important than ideological purity. The Republican National Committee is holding its summer meeting this week to plot a path to victory in 2016. During a closed-door talk, Christie positioned himself as the candidate who can win a general election, even if he's not the most ideologically conservative. CBS News obtained a recording of that audio. Here are the governor's remarks.
I think that we have some folks who believe that our job is to be college professors. For our ideas to matter, we have to win. Because if we don't win, we don't govern. And if we don't govern, all we do is shout into the wind.
That was an indirect shot at Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who's had a very public back-and-forth debate with Christie over the federal government's surveillance programs. And federal investigators have now recovered the flight recorders from a UPS cargo plane which crashed Wednesday in Alabama. The cases protecting those recorders were charred from the explosion and fire after the jet slammed into the ground during final approach towards Birmingham's airport. There is no indication, however, of engine failure or a fire before impact. And next up on your Newsmax Now update, an exclusive interview with country and bluegrass music legend Ricky Skaggs.
What is LigNet? LigNet is knowledge. LigNet is power. LigNet is global. Top-level officials, U.S. intelligence officers, national security advisors, foreign operatives, all reporting directly to you. What is LigNet? LigNet is confidential. LigNet is sensitive. LigNet is security. What is LigNet? They're the ones taking the world's pulse. If you're not in the know, you're not on lignet.com. You've been briefed.
In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at AftershockVideo.com. AftershockVideo.com.
Attention hip implant patients. Are you in constant pain? Have you received a letter from your doctor about your implant? Have you had or need a revision surgery? Do you have high levels of metal, chromium, or cobalt in your blood? Over 90,000 hip implant devices have been recalled due to defects and failures resulting in revision or replacement surgery. If you have a recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-0920 to see if your implant is affected by the recalls. If you or a loved one has a defective or recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-0920. That's 800-460-0920. Protect your legal rights today. Call 800-460-0920. This is an advertisement, not valid in all states. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. iLawsuit.com is an advertising group that represents lawyers advertising their services and is a free matching service for consumers. It is not a law firm or lawyer referral service.
And welcome back. A powerful tropical disturbance is expected to soak lots of people this Saturday and Sunday across parts of the southeastern United States. These areas have seen so much rain already this summer. Meteorologists say a low-pressure system will combine with a stalled cold front over the south, which could result in 5 to 10 inches of rain in some places and possibly flooding in places like New Orleans. And during a Newsmax exclusive, we take a little departure from our normal subjects to talk with country and bluegrass music legend Ricky Skaggs about his faith, family, and what it's like to see a resurgence of a genre of music he loves so much.
It's very rewarding when I see a banjo up there, even right along with their kick drum. You know, there's something cool about that.
And to see more of our exclusive interviews and content, stay with Newsmax.com. This has been your Newsmax Now update for August 16th. I'm John Bachman. Now here's the Steve Malzberg Show in New York.
Are you ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hi, this is John Fund. I'm sitting in for Steve Malzberg today. You know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was an item that John Bachman mentioned in the news update you just heard. Governor Chris Christie was at the Republican National Committee meeting in Boston earlier this week and gave a very hard-hitting speech, basically setting out the differences between him and the other Republicans who may join him in running for president in 2016. One of the things he said is, I don't think we can afford to be a debating society. I don't think we can spend time talking about philosophical principles. Politics is about winning. We have to win. And I think we have to take the fight to the Democrats. And basically, we know what we believe in, and we don't have to basically have side arguments. Well, I'm a little skeptical of that, for two reasons. First of all, Governor Christie started this conversation a few weeks ago at a conference in Colorado in which he said, you know, the views of the growing libertarian element in the Republican Party, symbolized perhaps by senators like Ted Cruz of Texas and Rand Paul of Kentucky, have dangerous ideas, specifically on national security and perhaps on other issues. Well, that was a philosophical statement, a rather incendiary one, and Senator Rand Paul, for example, fired back. And this week, his father, Ron Paul, also made a comment about Governor Christie, and if we could play clip number 2, we'll get the conversation started on this issue. Well, I don't think that clip is quite coming. Number 2.
Because he offers nothing, no change. It's the status quo. It's more big government, and that's not what I've been about. But he talks about, well, you have to, bend your rules and compromise in order to get elected so you can run the government and govern. Well, there's more to it than that. More to it than just power and to say and do anything you want just to be in government. You have to believe in something and understand economics, or you just keep doing the same thing and deficits keep running up. And that's why nothing changes whether you have a Republican or a Democrat, because basically it's one party, and that's where the frustration comes from.
Well, that was the kind of, I think, belief and attitude that gave rise to the Tea Party. The Tea Party was an independent force. Most Tea Party people certainly voted Republican, but they were frustrated that there was a lot of Me Too Republicanism. We want what the Democrats want, we just want to do it cheaper and more efficiently. Now, I think that the party deserves a real debate about philosophical principles. It didn't get that fully in 2012. For example, on the issue of Obamacare, Mitt Romney was handicapped. He really couldn't go after Obamacare, which is the biggest expansion of government power in a sector of our economy in which 1 out of 6 of our dollars are spent, because he had implemented Romneycare, a variant of Obamacare in Massachusetts, and he felt compelled to defend having done that. He just said that each state had a different system, and Romneycare was appropriate for Massachusetts, where he was governor, but not for the country. I think we didn't have a real philosophical debate during the 2012 Republican presidential primaries. So now we have some time to do that. It's going to be 3 years until the Republican convention nominates the candidate for 2016. If we can't have a discussion about first principles and what the party should stand for and what conservatism really means, when can we have such a conversation? So I think there's plenty of time to have that debate. And frankly, I look forward to seeing if Governor Christie will get on a stage with Senator Paul or Senator Cruz of Texas or Senator Mike Lee of Utah and have a real discussion about what it means to be a Republican. Obviously, there are regional differences. Governor Christie's from the Northeast. He's from a state, New Jersey, which has voted Democratic for president every time for the last 20 years. And he has governed often as a conservative. I live in New Jersey. I applaud much of what Governor Christie has done. But, you know, after the first couple of years, Governor Christie didn't really focus on budget cuts, trimming back government inefficiencies. The budget started to grow. We began to negotiate with the Democratic legislature. Some of that is necessary. I'm not someone who says we can't have bipartisanship and compromise. Those are essential elements to any governing coalition and to actually getting something done. But in the case of Governor Christie, he does have a record in some areas of being a big government conservative. Subsidies for business development. He's been very tough on the teachers' unions, not so tough on other union issues. So let's have this debate. I think that Senator Paul, for example, has some vulnerabilities. You know, the world is a complex and dangerous place, and sometimes Senator Paul hasn't fully articulated how we can protect American interests abroad, not just by example, but sometimes through the delicate projection of real military force, which may be necessary. On the other hand, he's made a very, very strong point that clearly our policy in Egypt has been a complete disaster. We refused to declare what happened in Egypt a year ago a military coup. We refused to declare what happened in the last few weeks in Egypt, the extension of the military coup. We continued to, in violation of U.S. law, pump in foreign aid dollars to Egypt to try to prop up the regime. Now we see uprisings in the streets in which hundreds of people have died. Our next guest, who is from the international intelligence company Lignet, is going to be going into that. Now, this debate, which we're going to have in the Republican Party, I believe in the next few months and hopefully the next few years, is going to be of very great importance. Because remember, we're still in a very perilous state in our economy. The bank bailouts, which divided the party, about half the Republicans in Congress supported them, about half didn't. Those may have to be addressed again. We have such a fragile economy. We have the federal agencies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which helped cause the housing bubble, which then collapsed and fed the fuel of the financial crisis. And we're now debating whether or not to get rid of those or to continue them as, you know, zombie federal agencies that still will control 80% of the federal mortgage market for housing. All of these debates need to be happening now, because the next time we have a financial crisis, and I'm not convinced that we won't have one, we have to act on principle, having thought out what the alternatives are. We didn't do that in 2008 and 2009. We let President Bush bail out the auto industry, Detroit, and yes, the auto industry is back, but with an enormous cost to the taxpayer and with a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of distortions in the market. You know, the GM Volt car, which has proven to be a disaster, was basically subsidized by you, the taxpayer. The bank bailouts, all of these things. The time to figure out what we do when we come to the next crisis and whether or not we can act on sound principles and the traditions of the Founding Fathers is to have a debate about what is the proper course and role of government now. That is what we have to have. Now, as for Governor Christie, he has a lot of friends too. It's not just him saying this in the party. There are many voices in the establishment of the Republican Party, and indeed even in the establishment circles of the Republican leadership in Congress, that say the Tea Party is a spent force and we can go back to some business as usual. I'm not sure the Tea Party is a spent force. I think in 2012 they did turn out, but obviously not in quite the numbers as 2010, because Mitt Romney was a disappointment as a presidential candidate. In the next midterm election, I think we're going to see a different electorate. The anger alone against Obamacare will probably bring millions of people to the polls. The Republican Party functions best when it's a coalition. It has traditional business interests, it has national security conservatives, social conservatives, and Tea Party people. They all have to find a way to get along, to get to 50% plus one of the vote, otherwise you don't win. On that I agree with Governor Christie. But we have to have a common basis of agreement and a common platform, because if we don't, we're not going to win in 2016 or 2014. I'm John Fund for Newsmax TV, and I hope you'll be back for our next segment. We'll be joined by Fred Fleets, managing editor of Lignet.com, who will join us to discuss the escalating violence and tensions in Egypt. This is John Fund, sitting in for Steve Malzberg.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Attention seniors and baby boomers. A new website has been created just for you. SocialSecurityFree.com. At SocialSecurityFree.com, we reveal a weird trick that could help you add $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. For example, did you know how you file for Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect? One simple step could add up to $1,000 to your monthly payouts. And other loopholes we found reveal 33 ways for big savings on your health care. At SocialSecurityFree.com, you will also discover how you could save up to 50% on your groceries, along with 49 other ways to save as much as $50,000 starting today. Newsmax says SocialSecurityFree.com is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to SocialSecurityFree.com now to find out how you could add extra money to your Social Security checks. That's SocialSecurityFree.com.
Newsmax Magazine is proud to present a special tribute to our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. It's a very special documentary and commemorative issue of Newsmax Magazine celebrating the centennial of President Reagan's birth. First, here's a video clip from the award-winning documentary, Rendezvous with Destiny.
We're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Impulses of an evil empire.
Tear down this wall.
I believe that together we can keep this rendezvous with destiny.
In the next several minutes, you will learn things about President Ronald Reagan that you've never seen, heard, or read before. Welcome to today's special Newsmax event celebrating the life and legacy of President Reagan. During this historic presentation, we will commemorate President Reagan's storied life. We'll revisit his 2 terms in office and recollect his proudest achievements and greatest challenges. Ronald Reagan's life reads like a fairy tale of success stories. He was an accomplished athlete, an honored veteran, a famous actor, the governor of California, and of course, our nation's 40th president.
He called himself a citizen politician and only entered politics when he warned government was gaining too much power. By then he was age 54, with a successful career behind him. Twice elected President of the United States, Ronald Wilson Reagan was a contradiction to some. Once a Democrat, then a Republican. A champion of smaller government whose own government grew. A fiscal conservative who failed to balance the budget. His critics mistook his affability for weakness, but behind the smile and the charm existed an extraordinary leader with unique skills and bold and revolutionary ideas.
We only had time to share just a few of the top defining moments in Ronald Reagan's presidency, but you'll get to see them all in Rendezvous with Destiny. By the way, the president's close relationship with the Pope is especially fascinating. You'll also learn how dealing with an alcoholic father helped shape Reagan's ability to negotiate. And if you ever wondered what the leader of the free world likes to get for the holidays, well, you'll find that out as well. So let's review today in this free offer. We are sending you a copy of Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and the collector's limited edition of our issue commemorating the 100th anniversary of President Reagan's birth.
Right now, when you subscribe to Newsmax Magazine, you can own both the DVD and receive the special Reagan 100th Birthday Commemorative Edition. That's $25 in bonus gifts when you subscribe. Go to Newsmax.com/Reagan13 to subscribe today. Join the millions who read Newsmax Magazine every month.
Breaking news and breaking hearts. Aww. This is the Steve Malzberg Show.
Welcome back. This is John Fund. I'm sitting in for Steve Malzberg today. If you'd like to join the conversation, please call us at 855-777-9660. Joining us now is Fred Fleets, the managing editor of Lignet.com, which is a global intelligence service. Boy, do we really need your services today, Fred. Egypt is in turmoil. Obviously, you're following the news there closely. What are the latest developments?
It sure looks terrible, John, and welcome to Newsmax TV. This situation looks like there's no easy solution, and I'm afraid American policy has made it a lot worse. It's now clear that the Muslim Brotherhood, the radical Islamists in Egypt, are not going to back down. The Egyptian military government is not going to bend either. And I think we're going to have a fight to the death of one of these two sides. The Egyptian military is going to continue their crackdown. And I think that the way things are going right now, the Muslim Brotherhood is moving towards becoming an underground militancy, which is going to be engaged in acts of terrorism. It's just a terrible situation.
So we could be seeing something that might look like a guerrilla war or even a civil war down the road?
I think we're moving towards a civil war. I don't. The Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamists have millions of supporters, and cracking down against them, there's lots of people who don't like the Muslim Brotherhood. But one thing that I think has sort of been missed in the media is that this has mostly been because the Morsi regime was so incompetent. It did try to seize more power than it was supposed to, and it did do what the people didn't want it to do. But a lot of this is economic. The country is in very bad economic shape.
And it will get even worse now if the civil war takes place.
That's right. It's going to get worse with these protests. I mean, shops can't operate if people keep filling the streets and breaking storefronts and confronting the police. It's very bad for the Egyptian economy. I'm very troubled about how the Obama administration has contributed to this. Their policy has been so weak that the Egyptian military seem to think they had a free hand to engage in this crackdown this week. But something which I think is also worth considering, and this is something Bill Gertz said in a Washington Free Beacon piece yesterday, if the Egyptian military is willing to engage in such a ruthless crackdown that it knows will alienate the West, we have to consider the possibility that they may be preparing to make new international alliances, possibly with Moscow, in the belief that the Russians don't care about ruthless crackdowns. Look at Syria. And if that's the case, our wishy-washy policy may lead to an outcome that's much worse than we may have anticipated.
So if we have the president showing weakness in Egypt, is this another example of he deciding to lead from behind?
It seems that way, John. I think the Obama administration had a very difficult road ahead of it, and I think we all have to acknowledge that in deciding how to deal with this situation. But I don't think it was firm enough with the Morsi regime that it had to basically leave power and or initiate some pretty significant reforms to appease the people. And when the Morsi regime was overthrown, I don't think we were nearly hard enough on the military regime to make it clear that there's certain types of activities and crackdowns we simply can't tolerate.
Well, except that it was clear that the military engaged in sort of a quiet coup a month or so ago in Egypt by removing President Morsi. Now, the American law states that if you have something like that, it should jeopardize the extensive foreign aid and military aid Egypt gets. We did nothing about that. In fact, we only called off our military exercises with Egyptians today. In your opinion, should the United States have tried to use that as leverage with either the Morsi government or with the military government now? And do we look weak by simply ignoring our own laws?
Well, I think we look very weak ignoring our own laws. I think when the State Department spokeswoman is basically splitting hairs that we're not going to determine that whether this is a coup or not, I have some sympathy for the White House because Congress has tied the president's hands by requiring him to cut off aid if he determines something's a coup. Of course it's a coup. Of course it's a coup. And when we don't call things honestly, I think it undermines our reputation. We might have been able to use this as leverage. It may have been necessary for us to cut off aid in exchange for the Egyptian military making some concessions. But this situation now makes us look extremely weak.
And the military government is basically have its back up against the wall, and they feel that they can't now make concessions. Now, the Israelis, behind the scenes, they always had a strong interest in the stability of the old Mubarak regime, and they became very worried when that collapsed. How are the Israelis responding both publicly and privately to the events in Egypt?
Well, Lignit.com ran a very interesting piece on our site today about how the Israelis may be secretly assisting the Egyptian military, particularly in the Sinai. Ever since Mubarak left power, radical Islamists and al-Qaeda members have been going to the Sinai. They're turning the peninsula into a regional terrorist haven and base of operations. And there was an attack from the Sinai shortly after Mubarak left power from Hamas members who got into Israel through the Sinai. The Israelis are very worried about this. They're worried about instability in the region. They're worried about radical Islamists getting a foothold, and they're worried about whatever whatever comes out of this government when the dust clears. It's not going to be as positive towards Israel as the Mubarak regime, and they're very worried that the result would be a regime that may not be as supportive of the Camp David Accords.
Now, there are other elements in the Middle East that are even more worrisome, perhaps, than the Muslim Brotherhood. There's Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, a whole range of groups that do not have our best interests at heart. How do you think they'll react to the events in Egypt? And will they perhaps try to make common cause with the Muslim Brotherhood and stir up trouble not only in Egypt, but elsewhere in the Middle East and perhaps even in other countries?
The first thing these people are going to do is to say, we tried democracy and it failed. And, I mean, the Islamists have been suspicious of democracy for a long time.
Well, they won an election in Algeria many years ago, and they were immediately thrown out of office by the military. So they do have some precedent for, shall we say, saying that promises made in a democratic election aren't always kept.
That's right, and I think that there are some parallels to what happened in Algeria happening in Egypt. Now, many more people, I think 200,000 people were killed in Algeria when the Islamists who took power through an election were thrown out. But there are some striking parallels between what's going on in Egypt. But I think these people, the radical Islamists and Al-Qaeda, are going to portray us as hypocrites, and they're going to encourage despotic Islamic regimes to move away from the West and to move away from any semblance of democracy based on what's happening in Egypt.
So basically what you're saying is that the hopes of 2 or 3 years ago when we had the so-called Arab Spring, it now looks like it's going to be an Arab nightmare, if you can just be brief.
I think that's right. I think the hopes for the Arab Spring were a little bit exaggerated.
Well, listen, Fred Fleets of Lignit.com, thank you. Please visit his site. And this is John Fund. I am sitting in for Steve Malzberg. And please join us in the next segment. We'll have other exciting guests.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Attention, if you've been classified as a high-risk driver due to DUI, DWI, or tickets for aggressive driving and are required to get expensive and hard-to-find SR22 auto insurance, then you must listen to this message because we can help. We're the largest insurance company in the U.S. specializing in SR22 auto insurance and focused on serving the needs of customers classified by the state as high-risk drivers. We help people get back on their feet by providing easy-to-get, low-cost SR22 insurance that anyone can afford. If you need SR22 auto insurance, or if you have it now and are paying too much, you need to call us today for your free quote at 800-836-4606. Our specialists are standing by waiting for your call. We understand people make mistakes, and we're here to help by making SR22 insurance easy to get and affordable for everyone. The call and quote are free. Call us now at 800-836-4606. That's 800-836-4606. Again, 800-836-4606.
3 a.m. and you're up again for the third time. It's not just affecting your sleep, it's interrupting your daily life. Frequent trips to the bathroom due to an aging prostate is a common concern, but you can now do something about it with Prostate Revive. Doctor-formulated Prostate Revive is an all-natural dietary supplement packed with 15 powerful ingredients, focused on improving prostate health by targeting the two main sources of prostate concerns, rogue testosterone and inflammation. And now, in this limited time radio offer, you can try Prostate Revive absolutely absolutely free. That's a free bottle, a 30-day supply of Prostate Revive, risk-free. Plus, if you call right now, you'll also receive our free report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. Call now for details on getting your free bottle, plus our doctor's report. Call 1-800-659-REVIVE. That's 1-800-659-REVIVE. Don't be a victim of an aging prostate. Start getting the sleep you need and get your life back with Prostate Revive. Claim your risk-free bottle now at 1-800-659-REVIVE.
Do you owe the IRS? Do you have unfiled tax returns? Have you received a wage garnishment or bank levy? Maybe a lien has been filed against you. OMG Tax can help you with all your IRS tax problems. Don't wait another second. Take action now. Call my team at OMG Tax. Honest and professional, we don't make false promises. If you owe back taxes, or if the IRS is garnishing your paycheck, you need help now. OMG Tax can help you get your life back to normal. If you're serious about handling your tax matter, call OMG Tax now and get the peace of mind you deserve. Don't let the IRS take your next paycheck. Stop waiting and call our team at OMG Tax. OMG Tax has a straightforward, no-nonsense approach and has helped many Americans resolve their IRS nightmare. Call OMG Tax now.
Call 1-800-255-6485. That's 1-800-255-6485. 800-255-6485.
Hey guys, do you know your testosterone level? You should. Each year, declining testosterone robs more of your energy, drive, motivation, and even your ability to perform in bed. Take control of your testosterone today. Write this number down because Progene, the leader in dual-action testosterone supplements, is now giving you a free supply if you call today at 800-592-4834. If you'd like to feel closer to 20 than 40 and get back that energy, drive, and confidence, call now to try Progene risk-free. Don't believe us? We'll even prove it works. Ask about our at-home testosterone test kits and see for yourself what Progene can do for you. Be one of the next 100 callers. We'll triple your order and send you a full 1-month supply of Progene for free. A $70 value for only the cost of shipping and handling. Call 800-592-4834 for details. Know your level and kick your drive back into gear with Progene. Call 800-592-4834. That's 800-592-4834. Again, 800-592-4834.
Where can you find the Steve Malzberg Show? Everywhere. From your smartphone to satellite radio to Newsmax Live TV to Roku, we have you covered. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hi, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. I am John Funn, sitting in for Steve, who is out today. And right now we have a major controversy about Obamacare. Yes, once again, it looks as if Obamacare is in trouble, and it looks as if there is a great deal of debate as to whether or not it will be ready for prime time, which begins October 1st, when the exchanges open and the uninsured will be trying to buy health insurance. With us is Tom Miller, who is a resident fellow of the American Enterprise Institute and a longtime expert on health care. Thanks for being with us, Tom.
Pleasure to be with you, John.
The news today is that it's only 6 weeks to go to October 1st, the start of Obamacare, and just now the Department of Health and Human Services, I call it the Department of Hell and Human Suffering, has announced that they're going to release $67 million for navigators. And these aren't people to pilot the ship. These are people who are going to sit down and hold the hand of the uninsured as they try to sort through all the health insurance options they hope they will find on the Obama websites and buy something. And there's also new controversy with the navigators because apparently it's not clear if there are even going to be criminal background checks on these people, even though they'll have access to the most sensitive tax information, information on your Social Security records, information on your Veteran Department records if you happen to have served in our armed forces. And 13 state attorneys general, these are the chief law enforcement officers of their state, have sent a letter to Secretary Sebelius at HHS saying we have grave concerns about the privacy issues here, grave concerns about identity theft, grave concerns whether or not this program will be ready to work. And Tom, we're going to go over a lot of what is happening with Obamacare, but maybe you could comment just briefly on whether or not people really should be worried about this Navigators program and its late start.
Okay, I think it's a legitimate concern. It varies from state to state. Some states, I think, have even tried to insert some of their own standards on who could be a navigator or what type of screens or background checks they'll go through. But there's going to be a lot of slack in the program, particularly because so much of this is such a scramble, such a push to get people enrolled by any means necessary, that you're going to have a lot of
it's going to be knock and drag, just like the 2012 election.
Yeah, that's all true. So I think the attorney generals are right to express their concern. Part of it is also the overreach of the law doesn't have the resources to pull it off. So another announcement today was trying to find some type of funding to do these type of navigators or enrollment for it. The interesting thing is they really don't have the funding for the federally facilitated or federally run exchanges compared to the state-run exchanges. They've got a lot of grants to pump money into. The states are more enthusiastic about it, but among more than 30 states, they're having a little trouble coming up with people to get anybody on the ground to knock on doors and get people interested in something they'd like rather go into hiding and avoid.
Well, Tom, actually, what are the navigators exactly going to be doing? How do they reach their so-called client base? Are they going to go door to door to people and say, do you have health insurance? Would you like some? I have an laptop here. What are they going to be doing?
I think the first requirement will be to get them get them enrolled to vote, and then the rest will be.
Well, actually, Tom, you're not far from that. The state of California, Secretary of State Deborah Bowen, a Democrat, has announced that she's partnering with the Navigators program in California, and one of the things they're going to be doing, along with signing up people for health insurance, is signing them up to register to vote. So you're not far off the mark at all.
Well, they're moving from motor voter to emergency room voter, I think, the next stage.
Keep that one. That's a good one.
If you have a pulse and a heartbeat,
right.
We'll be able to.
In fact, and we're responsible for at least keeping the pulse going.
That's right. Look, I mean, all this is jamming in, and although we think of October 1 as I would say it's the off-Broadway opening of what will be a short play, that whole process actually extends for almost 6 months. So they're going to have a lot of snafus and scrambles at the early going, and they're hoping to just stay on their feet in order to, line up. They're hoping to get 7 to 8 million people, and their bigger problem is being able to get young people who are relatively healthy and really would not be inclined to overpay for their health care to somehow sign up for this. And I think that's where the struggle is going to be.
Actually, the reason they need these young people in the health care exchanges is because somebody has to pay for the expansion of health care for older people. Can you explain how that works?
Well, this is
or doesn't work.
It may work in theory. It breaks down in practice. The concept is part of it is it's not full community rating, but what's called adjusted community rating, where people who are older, who will be much more expensive to cover and have higher claims, there's a limit on how much more you can charge their premiums under the law. It's roughly a 3-to-1 age band. In addition, with what's called guaranteed issue or no pre-existing conditions, you'll tend to have the people most likely to go into these subsidized exchanges are people who are going to be less healthy. So in order to make that all work, you have to get a lot of other folks who will pay higher premiums and not use as much health care to make it all supposedly blend over. Now, at the same time, they'll tell all the people who are healthy and they really have to pay those high premiums because they'll be subsidized. The taxpayers will pay it. So it's a little bit of a shell game to imagine that no one's paying for what's going to be a more expensive system.
Well, the bottom line for supporters of Obamacare is they say, well, all these costs that people say they're going to have dumped on them because of higher insurance premiums that we're seeing in some states, you're forgetting about the other part of the equation, which is there'll be these wonderful subsidies that kick in up to 400% of the poverty level.
Right.
So even if you're young and you're not, not particularly going to be sick, aren't you going to be subsidized? So you're really not going to pay that much for this brand new health insurance?
And we've heard that in entitlement programs as well. So young people are also paying for those, which is part of their long-term tab. It's a miracle in which everybody somehow pays less, yet somehow there must be some higher costs somewhere that are being picked up elsewhere by either rich people or people who don't know what's going on. Eventually the carousel stops, and it turns out that everybody has a different set of costs than they originally imagined. But that's the pretense in order to get this launched.
Now, Tom, the one thing I hear people say over and over again is, I don't understand any of these numbers, but I do remember President Obama's promise that if you're happy with your doctor, you can keep him. If you're happy with your health insurance plan, you can keep that. How's that looking as if it's going to work out for folks right now? Are people going to be able to keep their own doctor and insurance plan?
It'll probably start with not being able to keep your own insurance plan. There's several stages to that. Part of it is over time, employers will be less inclined to offer coverage, or they won't happen immediately. There's some pressures on smaller employers under the new regulatory structure and the opportunity now without an employer mandate to leave earlier. In terms of your health plan, though, because of additional rules that were put in to make the older plans more expensive, as soon as you have to change anything, they're no longer protected under what is said to be grandfathering. So most of those will come under the new rules anyway. So you're getting a new type of health plan. And what's happening not only in the private market but also in these exchanges, the new plan you get will tend to be a more restricted network with fewer choice of providers. So,
well, what if I want to? But what if I want a specialist? What if I have a particular disease and there's this great specialist in town that I saw 5 years ago? Am I going to be able to see him or her now?
He may not be in your new and improved health plan because either he didn't agree to take lower payments or didn't want to kind of play ball with the new arrangements. So over time, you're going to be more restricted in your choice of a physician or sometimes hospital.
Are you saying that President Obama didn't give us quite the whole truth?
It was situational truth. It sounded like a good story at the time, and that was needed for the political transaction. But it was never probably intended to actually be done that way, and certainly isn't materializing that way.
Tom, can you stay with us just a couple more minutes?
Sure.
Well, on part-time work, we keep hearing this anecdotal evidence that lots of companies, universities even, are cutting back employees to 29 hours because at that point they don't have to provide health insurance. Do you think this is just more than anecdotal, or do you think it's been overblown?
It's more than anecdotal. The interesting marker on this, you just mentioned the example. It turns out that the most sensitive parties in this regard often are governmental bodies, where they're much more willing to reduce the wages and the
like the University of Arizona, for example.
Yeah,
my brother's
and there's
alma
a large
mater.
number of that. You can go all that, and there's sometimes state and local governments as well beyond just the university. It's all part of the way the law was written. It almost makes an employer have to rethink, what their business is about. They know they're going to have higher costs under what is required coverage, and suddenly there's this big beacon in the sky saying, but if you stay under 30 hours, you don't have to offer this expensive coverage to people. So whereas before it might have been kind of an in-between decision, now it's almost a survival strategy for any type of employer who's got narrow margins and sees the costs ahead. So think about it. We also have the national statistics if you look at over the last year or two, but even in recent quarters, the amount of part-time workers who would like to have full-time jobs seems to be going up. A lot of the employment growth turns out to be showing up in the part-time category. That's not totally unrelated to the incentives ahead under the Affordable Care Act.
Are we seeing any evidence that doctors are throwing up their hands and saying, this is really going to be a mess or complicated, maybe I'll retire early, or maybe I won't enter the profession? Are we going to see a doctor shortage in the future, perhaps?
We've got some survey evidence. There's Medicare beneficiary surveys indicating that there's an increase, not overwhelming, but it's going up in terms of doctors who are not taking new Medicare patients. Certainly we've had problems for a long period of time, even before this new Medicaid expansion's made it worse, with physicians being able or willing to treat Medicaid patients that get paid much less than what they actually cost to be treated. We've got also among older doctors, I think, less desire to stay in this new world. So in general, we're going to have an increase in demand. Government's pretty good at doing that, but pretty much either the same or a slightly shrinking supply, which is going to cause major problems ahead in terms of access to medical care.
Ostensibly, we're doing all of this because there were 30-odd million uninsured Americans. The numbers vary. And a chunk of those, maybe 2/3, are going to have access to health insurance now. But what kind of health insurance? I've seen estimates that up to 40% of the people who are going to be getting new health insurance will simply be dumped into Medicaid. Is the number that high? And if that's so, what kind of medicine can they expect to get? Because it's one thing to insure someone, quote unquote, it's another thing to actually provide them real medical care.
Right. Well, old Medicaid had a pretty poor track record in terms of the quality of care.
Half the doctors wouldn't see new patients.
Right, or the doctors you get weren't necessarily the top of the line, and there are all kinds of stories there. Now, the Medicaid expansion was going to aggravate that even more under the first version of the law. As we know, about half the states have not played ball at the Medicaid expansion after the Supreme Court ruling, so that's cut back on those estimates of increased coverage in the lower cost, the lower quality way to expand health care coverage.
But it still doesn't help people in the states that have expanded Medicaid, because in those states, you're going to get that problem.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is you've got a mismatch between what you say you want to do and what you can pay for. So the way we do that in government, at least this version of policy, is to deliver less than what you promised, and it makes the budgetary picture look a little bit better, but doesn't help the health care of the people you promised improvement to.
So I guess my summary of what I've heard from you is, even though we don't know exactly all the details or what the problems are going to be, it sounds like we were sold a health care plan, and actually it sounds like game of three-card Monte in a rather disreputable casino.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only can they not deliver what they said they were going to deliver, but they've been starting to drop off some of the elements. As you know, there have been a number of provisions that have either been canceled, delayed, or deferred, or translated into something else. So we're going to get kind of the further reduced rate version of what was Obamacare 1.0, trying to stagger to the finish line.
Two quick questions. Okay, let's look at it from the Obama administration's perspective. If they keep delaying and putting off implementation of some of these things, do they buy enough time that they can get through the next couple of elections and then Obamacare will be solidified in the American consciousness? Or are these delaying things simply mucking up the whole thing, making it more difficult to implement down the line?
That's a little bit of where the straddle is right now. I think their primary strategy, after all is said and done, is we've got a permanent law. You can't blow it out of the water. So whatever we can accomplish, we'll call a success, even if it isn't, and we'll still be around several years later to do the follow-ons and the finishing touches. Now, clearly there's going to be some pressure later this fall into whether it's defunding or trying to hold things to the mats. And we'll see how that sorts out. Ultimately, I think it's going to take a couple more elections, the congressional elections in 2014, presidential in 2016. But for the folks who are in favor of this, they're saying, we've already won. We just have to kind of keep it from being reversed.
Well, Tom, last question. As a hard-headed analyst, do you think there's any realistic way that Obamacare is going to collapse to the point where large parts of it can be gotten rid of or just simply forgotten? Or do you think ultimately we are going to be stuck with most of it?
We're going to be stuck with some of it, but not all of it. I think that, those of us who have opposed to it and allies need to do a better job of saying there's a better world ahead in a different way. And sometimes we've done a good job of demonizing Obamacare without expressing a positive way.
Actually, Newt Gingrich made a very impressive speech this week. He knows something about health care, and he said, look, you have to have an alternative. If you don't have an alternative, people think what you have will be even worse than what we have now.
Right, although things will be bad enough that people will be looking for an alternative.
Well, listen, Tom, thank you for taking time out from your very busy day at a conference. And that's Tom Miller, resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and my favorite go-to guy for health care. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, John. My pleasure.
This is John Funn sitting in for Steve Malzberg, and we'll be back with another segment right around the corner. Thanks.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
Meet Jim. Like many of us, Jim enjoys a busy life. Between work, family, and friends, his days zip along. And Jim has the energy to tackle almost anything. But lately, Jim's get up and go has literally taken on a new meaning. Jim's always put focus on a full night's sleep, but it seems like these days, he's up and down to go to the bathroom so many times he can barely wake up in the morning. His prostate concerns have him sad, tired, and worried. Activities that were once enjoyable now seem like a chore for Jim. His golf game is at the mercy of his bathroom schedule. Family outings are planned around it too. Jim even has difficulty going to the bathroom. He's tried so many prostate remedies he can't keep them straight, and nothing ever seems to help. Then Jim found out about Prostate Revive, the all-natural dietary supplement specifically formulated for men, targeted towards improving and sustaining normal prostate function. Prostate Revive includes 15 super ingredients never combined before, including saw palmetto extract, beta-cytosterol, pomegranate fruit extract, selenium, and other high-quality nutrients. These targeted and all-natural ingredients promote healthy urinary flow and optimal prostate health. And the best part is, Prostate Revive was developed by a renowned medical doctor. Dr. David Brownstein personally formulated Prostate Revive with one goal in mind, to promote a healthy prostate gland. Thanks to Prostate Revive, Jim's got his life back. He gets a full night's sleep every night, and his friends and his wife can't believe he's the same guy. He has his old energy back, and no one has to wait for him. He doesn't even think about his prostate concerns anymore. Visit MedicSelect.com to take back your nights and improve your quality of life with Prostate Revive.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. You need to watch out because thousands of new Obamacare rules are currently being implemented, and few know what the law says or does. Listen to what Senator Max Baucus, one of the authors of the Obamacare law, recently said.
I tell you, I just see a huge train wreck coming down, and I don't see any results yet. I just see a huge train wreck.
He's right. So protect yourself from this train wreck. Get the #1 bestseller, the Obamacare Survival Guide. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. Join more than 500,000 Americans who have their copy. Get the Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere, or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com.
We're in the midst of an obesity epidemic, and I'm not surprised. The statistics on obesity mirror an increasing trend of eating out or ordering in. In fact, some people dine out every night, but eating in restaurants is one of the biggest enemies of your heart. When you're in a restaurant, you don't really know what you're getting, and the calorie counts of many restaurant dishes are astronomical. In fact, some single dishes contain more calories than we should eat in an entire day. Eating in fast food restaurants is even worse. A diet of hamburgers, French fries, and shakes constitutes a fast lane to the emergency room. If you really want to help your heart, get in the habit of cooking simple meals at home. Here are 3 easy tips that will make your food taste better than even the best restaurant. Choose the best fruit in season. Your local farmer's market is a great place to start. It will probably still cost less than that pie you were thinking of buying. Get in the habit of using fresh herbs. You can use them in egg white omelets or dust them on the fish you grill or bake. And for a light dessert, choose a square or 2 of dark chocolate that you and your spouse can enjoy. There are lots of ways to make your heart healthy, but there are also lots of ways to damage it. That's why I wrote Fix It, Dr. Crandall's 90-day program. In it, I'll tell you how to kickstart your metabolism every day, how to pick the best diet for you, how to stop hunger from sabotaging your diet, the 7 superfoods for your heart. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute.
The Steve Malzberg Show is just a bit different from the other radio shows. We have TV cameras. Watch the show at Newsmax.com or listen on your favorite radio station. Here's Steve Malzberg.
Hi, this is John Fund. I'm sitting in for Steve Malzberg today. If you'd like to join the conversation, the phone number is 855-777-9660. I'd like to go back to what we heard a little bit earlier in the hour from Fred Fleets, who's managing editor of Lignet.com, the Global Intelligence Advisory Service. He was talking about the horrible prospects we face in Egypt, that the Muslim Brotherhood may go underground in a guerrilla war, or there may even be civil war in Egypt. Obviously, there are real security concerns that the United States has if that should happen. But, you know, the reaction to Egypt doesn't really fall entirely along ideological lines. President Obama has been criticized for not showing real leadership in Egypt, but I actually wonder if perhaps he really had that many options. Let's listen to a clip, number 5, about President Obama explaining how he sees the Egyptian situation right now.
Let me make one final point. America cannot determine the future of Egypt. That's a task for the Egyptian people. We don't take sides with any particular party or political figure. I know it's tempting inside of Egypt to blame the United States or the West or some other outside actor for what's gone wrong. We've been blamed by supporters of Morsi. We've been blamed by the other side as if we are supporters of Morsi. That kind of approach will do nothing to help Egyptians achieve the future that they deserve. We want Egypt to succeed. We want a peaceful, democratic, prosperous Egypt. That's our interest. But to achieve that, the Egyptians are going to have to do the work.
Well, you know, a lot of people are confused about what the proper response to the Egyptian coup and the ensuing violence should be. I myself am torn. I perhaps fall into the camp of, yes, I want the United States to exert influence in the world, but I also recognize the limits that we can exercise power from thousands of miles away. My colleague Jonah Goldberg has a very interesting article in National Review Online today called "The To Hell With Them Doctrine," in which he talks about to hell with them hawks. These are people who are comfortable using force abroad but have little patience for deep entanglement with the Muslim world, which they consider unredeemable or at least not worth the strenuous effort of trying to redeem. One of the problems we have in rallying support for American involvement in Egypt is, over the preceding 2 decades, the U.S. has sent troops into harm's way 5 times to liberate Muslim people. In Bosnia in the 1990s, in Kosovo, in Kuwait, in Afghanistan, and Iraq. And yet America's reputation generally worsened, not only around the world, but with Muslims. Whenever Muslim fanatics launched horrible and brutal terrorist attacks, slaughtering mostly fellow Muslims, Muslims rarely voiced much outrage. But when we get involved, we get the blame. So there's some natural hesitancy there, which I can understand, and a lot of Americans can understand. You know, the more we get involved in the tar sands of Egypt, the tar sands of the Middle East, the less credit we seem to get, and the more treasure and lives we seem to spend. So given all of that, I don't see that the president really can rally the American people behind a single set of policies. And perhaps he's right. Perhaps the Egyptians really are going to have to do this on their own. And what we can do, along with our allies, is limit the damage so that American interests and the interests of our allies in the Middle East are not unduly threatened by the violence and chaos and confusion that we see there. We have another great, exciting segment coming up, and please stay with us. I'm John Funn, sitting in for Steve Malzberg for Newsmax TV. Stay tuned.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction to alcohol or drugs, then you must listen to this message, because there is hope. No matter what addiction you or your loved one is coping with, you are just one phone call away from real help. Recovery Hotline makes the healing process simple and affordable by matching people to fully certified and experienced inpatient facilities that are right for their personal situations. Call 800-668-1286 now. Don't wait another day. Money does not have to be an issue. Most insurance is accepted. Just call 800-668-1286 today. Recovery Hotline's mission is to help you or someone you love begin the healing process and get back a healthy and sober life. And we can even help with family interventions and travel arrangements. One phone call is all it takes to get back the life you or your loved one deserves. The call is free. The help is real. Call 800-668-1286. That's 800-668-1286. 800-668-1286. Again, 800-668-1286.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names.
Really?
they found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call or go online to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-908-1254, 800-908-1254.
Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Now update. I'm John Bachman. Friday is the start of the weekend in Muslim countries, and it's also the day when believers participate in ritual prayers. But in Egypt today, many of those sermons are expected to be about the unrest with the government, and some are calling for more protests as well as a day of anger. But Egypt's government has authorized the use of deadly force against protesters who target police or government buildings. The potential for violence and even more deaths has been high throughout the day. The death toll from Wednesday's clashes has officially surpassed 600, and it continues to rise. And bodies now have been placed in mosques, which are acting as morgues.
My brother's number here at this makeshift morgue is 261. I know at least there's 261 bodies here.
On Wednesday, President Obama condemned the government's decision to crack down on protesters, and he announced that the U.S. would cancel biannual military exercises with Egypt that date back to 1981.
Our traditional cooperation cannot continue as usual when civilians are being killed in the streets and rights are being rolled back.
In response to President Obama, Egypt's government issued a statement late last night saying the president's position is not based on facts and it empowers violent militant groups, which causes further instability. Meanwhile, the price of crude oil continues to rise over concerns of a potential supply disruption as the violence in Egypt continues. Brent crude, a benchmark used to price imported oil purchased by many U.S. refineries, rose 5 cents to almost $110 a barrel. And in politics, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie gives a blunt warning to his fellow Republicans. Winning the next presidential election is far more important than ideological purity. The Republican National Committee is holding its summer meeting this week to plot a path to victory in 2016. During a closed-door talk, Christie positioned himself as the candidate who can win a general election, even if he's not the most ideologically conservative. CBS News obtained a recording of that audio. Here are the governor's remarks.
I think that we have some folks who believe that our job is to be college professors. For our ideas to matter, we have to win. Because if we don't win, we don't govern. And if we don't govern, all we do is shout into the wind.
That was an indirect shot at Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who's had a very public back-and-forth debate with Christie over the federal government's surveillance programs. And federal investigators have now recovered the flight recorders from a UPS cargo plane which crashed Wednesday in Alabama. The cases protecting those recorders were charred from the explosion and fire after the jet slammed into the ground during final approach towards Birmingham's airport. There is no indication, however, of engine failure or a fire before impact. And next up on your Newsmax Now update, an exclusive interview with country and bluegrass music legend Ricky Skaggs.
In 2013, half of your friends, family, and neighbors may lose their jobs, all while you are robbed of 90% of your life savings, investments, and home's value. Controversial economist Robert Wiedemer, who was the only expert to predict the recession, has released a startling video with shocking evidence that the powers that be have tried to ban. But that hasn't stopped 50 million people from getting the truth. Watch it at Aftershock911.com. Aftershock911.com.
Obamacare. More than $1 trillion in new costs. Hidden taxes, fees, big Medicare cuts, doctor shortages. How can we survive?
To know Obamacare is to survive Obamacare. The Obamacare Survival Guide tells you everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere. Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Credit card companies lure you in with low introductory rates or low minimum payments, and before you know it, you owe thousands of dollars in credit card debt. It has happened to millions of good people just like you. But here's the good news. Thanks to a powerful program now approved, anyone with $2,000 or more in credit card debt can cut their credit card payments up to half and even reduce or eliminate interest charges altogether. That's right. Our nationwide nonprofit program is helping U.S. residents cut their credit card payments. Call 800-613-3159 now. The call and information are free. We've helped over 500,000 people with their credit card debt, and now we can help you. Call 800-613-3159 to see how this powerful nonprofit program can work for you. Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Get free of credit card debt today. Call 800-613-3159. That's 800-613-3159. Again, 800-613-3159.
And welcome back. A powerful tropical disturbance is expected to soak lots of people this Saturday and Sunday across parts of the southeastern United States. These areas have seen so much rain already this summer. Meteorologists say a low pressure system will combine with a stalled cold front over the south, which could result in 5 to 10 inches of rain in some places and possibly flooding in places like New Orleans. And during a Newsmax exclusive, we take a little departure from our normal subjects to talk with country and bluegrass music legend Ricky Skaggs about his faith, family, and what it's like to see a resurgence of a genre of music he loves so much.
It's very rewarding when I see a banjo up there, even right along with their kick drum. You know, there's something cool about that.
And to see more of our exclusive interviews and content, stay with Newsmax.com. This has been your Newsmax Now update for August 16th. I'm John Bachman. Now here's the Steve Malzberg Show in New York.
Are you ready?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studios, this is the Steve Malzberg Show. Be a part of the action by calling 855-777-9660. That's 855-777-9660. Or email Steve at malzbergshow@newsmax.com. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hi, I'm John Fund. I'm sitting in for Steve Malzberg today here at Newsmax TV. You know, we had a very interesting series of developments regarding the National Security Agency scandals, the surveillance that supposedly has been conducted on millions of Americans, the Edward Snowden revelations. He was the fellow who has fled to Russia, having released an enormous amount of information in our internal intelligence apparatus. There was a very interesting article in the Washington Post today, 2 articles as a matter of fact. One quoted Reggie Walton, who is the chief judge of the Foreign Intelligence Court that rules on all of the requests the government makes for wiretaps, eavesdropping, other surveillance techniques. This is a secret court. It's not a conventional court in that there are 2 sides arguing about whether or not the surveillance should take place and whether or not it should include American citizens. It's a court that basically has the government submit briefs, submit suggestions about what should be done, and it rules on them. And in the vast majority of cases, some say over 99%, it more or less rubber stamps them and lets the government do what it will. Well, Judge Walton made a very interesting statement to the Washington Post today. He said, you know, we're completely dependent on the veracity and the completeness of the presentations the government makes to us. We don't have any independent investigative ability. We don't have gumshoes we can send out to see if they're telling us what's really going on, reflects reality. We have to really trust the government. Well, that's fine. We do have to trust the government, especially when it comes to national security. But we can't trust them completely. Because also today were revelations about an NSA audit. And this audit has some very, very disturbing news for us. It reports that in a 12-month period, a year or so ago, there were 2,766 separate violations of the law by our national intelligence agencies. In other words, they would eavesdrop on Americans wittingly or unwittingly. They would make mistakes. They also altered, according to these documents and the audit, altered what they reported to Congress and the administration about what happened. smoothing things over, downplaying what actually occurred. This is very disturbing. It's one thing to have intelligence agencies in the post 9/11 world react to the new dangers against us. It's another to trust them completely. And we have already seen that our government is extremely secretive when it comes to any kind of surveillance on of Congress or the administration and what they're doing. They don't seem to want it. In fact, sometimes they mislead us. Couple months ago, James Clapper, who's the head of the U.S. National Intelligence Agency, was sitting before Congress in an oversight hearing. He was asked by Senator Ron Wyden, who's a very responsible, moderate Democrat from Oregon. He was asked, can you assure the American people that you don't keep files, you don't have data collection on millions and millions of Americans right now? Now, the proper answer, if Mr. Clapper did not want to reveal anything that was secretive, the proper answer was, I can't really discuss this in public. I have to discuss this in some kind of open, closed session of Congress. Now, I believe that what he should have done is exactly that. Instead, what he said is, no, we don't keep files. We don't keep data collection on Americans. In fact, if we do, we don't do it wittingly. Well, if that wasn't a lie, it certainly was misleading. And I think that kind of behavior, we have to worry about it in a democracy. Because if we have executive branch agencies that are totally unaccountable to the Foreign Intelligence Advisory Court, congressional oversight committees, executive branch agencies, they can even lie or mislead the President of the United States. They become a power unto themselves. And that's very, very disturbing. Now, let me make clear. I support the war on terror. I mean, I myself was sitting in my office 150 yards across from the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001. I watched the second plane hit the tower of the World Trade Center. I spent all day there seeing things I never want to see again. There were things done that day that were never shown on television. I saw people jump from the top of the World Trade Center holding hands. I saw the priest who was there representing the New York City Fire Department. I saw him die when a jumper collapsed on top of him. I don't want to ever go through that again. We lost 3,000 Americans that day. But remember, some of what the terrorists were up to was trying to change our way of life, trying to win through another means other than direct conflict, trying to alter our way of life. And to some extent, they have succeeded. We have given up some of our freedoms, not only to our military, surveillance enterprises, but also civil liberties. Some American citizens have been confined, not with the normal protections that we give people who are American citizens and subject to the protections of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. So with all of that, I think we have to exercise caution. I believe the NSA has misled us. Now, that doesn't excuse what Edward Snowden did. There are provisions for whistleblowers to come forward. Often they're ignored, often sometimes they're punished, but that's the proper way to do it. And Edward Snowden took it unto himself, made his own determination that he was going to download and take these documents, and then he was going to release them, frankly, willy-nilly, without any proper review. And that was wrong. He deserves the full prosecution of the United States of America should he ever be in a jurisdiction where we can get him. And obviously the Russians are not doing us any favors. We're certainly not going to get a hold of Edward Snowden through the Russians. But having said that, Edward Snowden lifted up the Pandora's box of our national military intelligence surveillance activities and showed that while what he did was wrong, it's also wrong for some of the activities to have taken place and to be covered up or to be concealed or simply to be pushed aside and not looked at properly. The NSA told us through a spokesman today, well, we are making mistakes sometimes. We do have problems, but we clean them up. Yeah, but you don't really have real reform of an agency if you yourself are solely responsible for making the changes that are necessary. If you don't report these to Congress, if you change the reports that you give to the executive branch officials and your superiors and the other agencies of government, including the executive office of the president, How do we know that this is all that we need to know? How do we know you've actually made the reforms? Certainly what Edward Snowden described in terms of the nonchalance and the sloppiness with which some of this information was used or conveyed is very disturbing. So today's revelations, one with the federal judge who heads the court that oversees the intelligence and surveillance programs, saying we have to trust the government. The NSA audit that shows the government has not always leveled with us exactly of the number of abuses that have occurred in this program, should all give us pause. Our civil liberties are important. That's something that both liberals and conservatives have to agree on. Now, coming up, we have another exciting segment with Roger Stone, who is a legendary political consultant on the Republican side, sometimes the independent side, and sometimes all sides, but a fascinating raconteur and political analyst. Please stay around for that segment. This is John Funn sitting in for Steve Malzberg and Newsmax TV.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
If you need to lose weight and would like to get paid for it, that's right, I said get paid to lose weight. Just listen to the following announcement. The makers of GCE Green Coffee Bean Weight Loss are looking for real testimonials from real people and will pay you per pound to meet or exceed your weight loss goal. Until now, the secrets of green coffee's fat-burning power has been limited, but thanks to Dr. Oz, the secret is out. And now, this authentic green coffee bean fat burner is available in easy-to-take tablets. There are no expensive meals to buy or strenuous workouts. Simply take one tablet before each meal and record your progress. Only the first 200 callers are guaranteed to be accepted into the program. So if you're serious about losing extra weight and want to earn extra cash for fitting into your skinny jeans again, call 800-383-9230 now. Call 800-383-9230. 800-383-9230. Space is limited, so hurry and secure your spot today. 800-383-9230. Some conditions apply. 800-383-9230. 800-383-9230.
Obamacare. President Obama's massive health care law is taking effect this year. With over 15,000 pages of regulations, few even know what it means. Now, the Obamacare Survival Guide by Nick Tate gives you the shocking facts about this law. It's a step-by-step guide on how you can protect yourself. Already the New York Times bestseller, every American needs to get the Obamacare Survival Guide and find out about the new taxes, hidden fees, fines, Medicare changes, business rules, and why doctor shortages are likely. Donald Trump says the Obamacare Survival Guide is a must-read for anyone worried about getting good health care for themselves or their employees. So get the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's at bookstores, or get our special offer at Obamacare911.com and you'll save $15. Go now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com.
My patients still don't know what Obamacare means for them. And how could they? There are already 13,000 pages of regulations, and the bureaucrats are just getting started. Obamacare will change your health care, and you need to understand how. There are hidden taxes and fines, big cuts in Medicare, even new regulations on what services doctors can offer you. Some businesses could get hit with a 40% additional tax on your health care plan. Please, get the Obamacare Survival Guide today. It's the best book explaining the new law. It's easy to read, everything you need to know to protect yourself, your family, your business. The Obamacare Survival Guide at bookstores everywhere.
Special internet-only offer right now at Obamacare911.com.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-625-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. So cancel the cable and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-625-MY-TV. Right now to sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-625-MY-TV. 1-855-625-MY-TV. Cancel the cable, cut costs, and get more. 1-855-625-MY-TV. 1-855-625-MY-TV.
Sure, Steve might be a bit of a hypochondriac, but he never gets sick of breaking news. This is the Steve Malzberg Show. Call Steve at 1-855-777-9660. That's 1-855-777-9660. Here's Steve.
Actually, I'm not Steve today. I'm John Fund, sitting in for Steve Malzberg here at Newsmax TV. We have a very special guest. Frankly, it's almost become a cliche to say someone is legendary, but Roger Stone is legendary. He has been a political consultant, a provocateur, a political analyst for, well, since the days of Richard Nixon. Is that right, Roger?
Absolutely. I'm a Nixonite at heart.
Well, Nixon certainly had brought you some great stories, which I've heard with relish. We have a lot to talk about on national politics and also New York City politics because we have a primary here coming up. What's on your radar screen right now? How do you see the national political situation?
I tell you, I'm much more riveted on this New York City mayor's race. It's really finally starting to get interesting. I mean, what you've seen here, and I think most people realize, in the Democratic primary, if no one achieves 40%, which is unlikely, then there's a runoff between the two top vote getters. It looked just a couple weeks ago like that would be a squabble between City Council President Christine Quinn, former City Comptroller Bill Thompson, and Anthony Weiner, the former congressman. With the new revelations, Anthony Weiner has dropped to the basement. He's at 10% and falling. And suddenly, Bill de Blasio, a true leftist, I mean, the most far-out liberal you can imagine.
He used to work with the Working Families Party, which was allied with Acorn, the infamous voter registration fraud group.
It's an amazing thing. While he was on the city council, he was also a paid lobbyist for the Working Families Party to lobby the city council. I kid you not.
You can do that? Wow.
Well, you're not supposed to, but he did it. I wrote a long piece on it at the time. Additionally, by the way, he's called for doing away with the so-called member items, which is a slush fund in which city council members have the opportunity to get millions of dollars for these nonprofit organizations in their districts. Since he was on the city council, he got about $7 million in member items, and those organizations, their employees and board members, kick back in campaign contributions to him over $109,000, what they call, I think in New Jersey, it's called pay for play. So he's not exactly a reformer, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's the way you build a political machine these days, isn't it?
It's going to be very interesting. The other piece of interesting good news out of the Quinnipiac poll today is that former Deputy Mayor Joe Lhota, leading John Catsimatidis, the eccentric left-wing billionaire, close friend of Bill and Hillary, major supporter of Eliot Spitzer, David Patterson, Eric Schneiderman, Barack Obama, who now calls himself, oddly enough, a Republican. If you ended up here conceivably with a de Blasio-Lhota race in the general election, you could elect another Republican mayor of New York City.
Because the contrast between the deputy mayor to Rudy Giuliani and Bill de Blasio, the former guy who hung around with Working Families Party and Acorn, would be so dramatic?
Well, I think that's part of it. Also, Joe Lhota is an adult. He's somebody who's actually managed something successfully, who understands how New York City works, understands that raising taxes is a way to drive jobs out of the city, who understands that the keys to economic growth are spending restraint and tax restraint, as opposed to de Blasio, who wants to, quote-unquote, tax the rich, lay on a new tax across the board to pay for pre-K education, and so on. I think it would be a stunning contrast, and I think a lot of moderates, a lot of the people in the middle would gravitate to Loda. Loda is not a carbon copy of Rudy. He has some of Rudy's stronger attributes, but he is, I think, socially somewhat more moderate, and therefore, I think, probably more electable in a city in which the Republican Party has shrunk to 19% of registration.
Well, over half of New Yorkers take the subway or public transportation, and Joe Loda, when he was head of the Metropolitan Transit Authority, really improved the subway. I mean, it's not a day at the beach to take it, but it's clean, it's relatively reliable, crime is way down on the subway. That in a microcosm is what Rudy Giuliani helped perform miracles with in New York City, because New York City's now had 8 years of Giuliani, 12 years of Bloomberg, who in many respects carried on Giuliani policies, and Loda could actually make a plausible argument, I made transit work, I can make the city work.
I think that he needs a contrast. The Democratic primary holds the key. If for example, Christine Quinn, the city council president, is successful in winning the nomination, I think Loda is a strong challenge. If de Blasio, who is virtually a communist, he's so far out there, I think he's for redistribution of wealth. If he wins the primary, I think Loda is viable. Against Bill Thompson, the former city controller, I think it's a much tougher race, because Thompson, I think, can command the base of the Democratic Party, mostly minorities, fairly easily. On the other hand, his candidacy in the primary seems to be fizzling. This could be tied to the fact that his top strategist, Hank Henry Scheinkoff, recently took the Fifth Amendment multiple times in a state corruption probe having to do with contracts at the Aqueduct racetrack. So with corruption very much in the minds of New York voters because of this parade of politicians, Malcolm Smith, Seminario, Elliot Spitzer, so on and so forth, just the parade of corruption out of Albany, I think that's a very big negative for Thompson going into this primary.
Now, there are a couple of other, now you said Anthony Weiner, of course, has been forced down to 10%, but the other Democratic candidate running for citywide office in New York City is Elliot Spitzer. He seems to be soaring. How is that happening with Weiner collapsing and Spitzer doing so well?
Well, he's dipped into his own pockets. He refuses to participate in the city campaign finance program, and therefore $2 million, John Fund, I could elect you with $2 million.
Oh, that may be tough.
He's drowning his opponents in money. Very interesting story broke this afternoon about 4 black men who were fired from their positions as doormen at a building owned by Bernard Spitzer, simply for being black. They took their case to the Bronx Supreme Court, where they won. Their decision was appealed. It's a classic case of race discrimination. They appealed directly to Elliot Spitzer for justice, and he brushed them off. Now he's running 30 points ahead among black voters. I wonder how that will look when more and more African Americans learn about his lack of justice.
For that, we'll have to have his opponent, Mr. Springer, have enough money for ads. Well, Roger, thank you so much for your participation here. I know that you spend a lot of time in New York. Are you going to be up here for the primary?
I will be up there soon. I would just say, as far as the picture goes, it's not over till it's over.
I'd love to have a drink with you.
Let's do it.
Roger Stone, Republican consultant and raconteur. Thanks so much for being with us. This is John Fund for Newsmax TV, sitting in for Steve Malzberg. Please stay with us. We have a really exciting guest. The topic is voter fraud, and it's coming right up in just a moment. Thank you again.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
If you are successful at what you do, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, or you have a great career, you understand the concept of protecting yourself. Well, are you protecting yourself, your family, and your assets with quality term life insurance? Consider these possible rates. A man age 45, non-tobacco user could obtain $1 million of coverage for as little as $75 a month, and this rate is fixed for the next 10 years. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. A man age 50, non-tobacco user may be able to obtain $500,000 of coverage for as little as $115 a month. And this rate is fixed for the next 20 years. We have great rates for smokers, too. Call the Term Lifeline now. 800-430-1309, 800-430-1309, 800-430-1309.
Hello, my name is Fred Fleitz, and I'm the managing editor of LigNet. You've probably seen our name preceding some of the stories you read on Newsmax or heard LigNet referenced on Fox News, C-SPAN, or CNN. Perhaps you've asked yourself, what is LigNet? LigNet is an acronym for the Langley Intelligence Group Network, a private Washington, D.C. based service that provides global intelligence, in-depth analysis, and detailed forecasting. LigNet staff and advisors include former CIA officers, national security experts, presidential advisors, and top-level government officials from around the world. I myself held several national security posts for the U.S. government during my 25-year career with the Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the U.S. Department of State, and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Our lead advisor is General Michael Hayden, the former director of the CIA. He is joined by former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations John Bolton and former chairman of the National Intelligence Council and Special Assistant to President Ronald Reagan, Fritz Ehrmann, former U.S. Ambassador to Venezuela Otto Reich, and former clandestine service officer Frederick Russman. Former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Peter Hoekstra, also join our advisory board staff. Every day, our goal is to use our expertise, our resources, and our worldwide staff to take the pulse of the ever-changing political and economic landscape and the threats we face on a daily basis. Whether you are following global events for your portfolio or business, or just interested in the world around you, LigNet provides what you need to know to keep up with global events. There are many. Every day, LigNet members receive the Morning Brief, a daily email that provides summaries and links to our daily analysis to keep you up to date on LigNet's assessments. LigNet members receive unrestricted access to LigNet's secure database of global analysis. All of our special reports, previous analyses, and exclusive video interviews with intelligence insiders are available to members 24 hours a day. But you also get top-notch analysis that resembles the President's Daily Brief, the classified intelligence assessment delivered to the President of the United States every morning. LigNet also sends breaking news emails to our membership list. If there is a development of global proportions or a terror alert, our subscribers are always the first to know. I hope you now have a better understanding of what LigNet is, but more importantly, recognize how truly invaluable LigNet can be. As the old saying goes, knowledge is power.
Join LigNet for $1. Go to lignet.com.
This is not your typical Screamfest talk show.
No.
This is the next generation of talk radio. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Hi, this is John Fund. I'm sitting in for Steve Malzberg today, and we have a very special guest and a good friend of mine, J. Christian Adams, former Department of Justice lawyer who became a whistleblower on all of the things that were going wrong at the Office of Civil Rights. And he also wrote a book on his experiences there, Injustice, Exposing the Radical Agenda of the Obama Justice Department, and rarely has a book had a thesis that was so borne out by events that followed its publication. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, John.
Well, Eric Holder, your old boss at the Department of Justice, has been a lot in the news this week and last week and the week before that, and Hillary Clinton has been in the news. It seems to me that the Department of Justice is almost like a runaway train right now. Everybody's figured out it's out of control, but no one in the caboose wants to stop. No one in the engine room wants to stop it, and they seem to be just going faster and faster to try to subvert the justice system in this country. How do you see Eric Holder and what he's doing specifically in the areas you pay most attention to, which is voting rights and civil rights?
Well, he's doing exactly what President Obama promised in the 2008 campaign to anybody who was listening, and that was fundamentally transform America. And the Justice Department is the part of the government that probably has more power, other than the Defense Department, of course, but that's a whole different story, that has more power than any other federal agency. And they're using it to transform America across the board to a really radicalized agenda, whether it involves voting, whether it involves civil rights, mortgage lending, you name it. They're using the Justice Department as a left-wing radicalization tool.
Well, Tom Perez, who was head of the Office of Civil Rights for part of the time that you were there, he recently got a promotion. He's now the Secretary of Labor. The Republican attempt to derail his nomination failed. What was Tom Perez's agenda, and what were his greatest hits, so to speak, at the Office of Civil Rights when he was there at the Justice Department?
Yeah, well, Tom Perez, this is a great point you bring up. When Perez was head of the Civil Rights Division, he was really the guy on the ground responsible for this radical agenda, whether it was attacking voter ID laws in Texas and South Carolina, or whether it was forcing the New York City Fire Department to actually hire people who flunked the test, the entrance exams, simply because these people were black. They still had to hire them because of their skin color. Perez was the guy who really implemented all of this. And, you know, there was a lot of controversy over all of these programs. We don't even have time to list them all. Enormous controversy. But to show you what Obama really thinks, he promoted him to labor secretary.
Well, one of the programs that Perez was very much involved in was federal efforts to try to force local communities to build public housing or to restructure their housing programs. What was his role in that, and what do those programs try to do?
Yeah, this is part of this effort to move, if you will, resources from the have to the have-nots. It's a storyline many decades old. And what Perez was doing was leveraging the power of the Justice Department to force jurisdictions to develop more Section 8 housing, to shake down landlords who refuse to take Section 8 vouchers, to shake down banks who refuse to lend to people, for example, that didn't have very good credit.
Isn't this what happened during the housing bubble and the Community Reinvestment Act scandal under Clinton and Bush that got us into the financial mess we're in part, and we're still doing it?
Well, we're still doing it. Tom Perez and Obama and Holder, this is part of their main agenda on housing, and that is to force what they call community banks to loan money to places that shouldn't be getting money. But it doesn't matter to them because they see people who can't get mortgage loans that have bad credit as victims of the system, not as people who made bad choices.
You know, I spent several years observing the Justice Department during the Bush administration, and certainly there were a lot of mistakes made. I think, Alberto Gonzales, the Attorney General during the second half of the Bush years, shall we say, was deficient in many respects. And I noticed, of course, there was a scandal that seemed to consume him regarding the firing of U.S. attorneys, something that presidents have done from time immemorial. Bill Clinton fired every U.S. attorney the first day he was on the job as president. Bush removed a few U.S. attorneys because they didn't seem to go along with his law enforcement priorities, and somehow that became a big scandal. Now, Eric Holder seems to have scandals in every pot, in every cupboard, in every cubbyhole of the Justice Department. You've written a best-selling book, Regnery book, Injustice. What have you noticed about the media reaction to all of the Eric Holder scandals, and how does that contrast with what the media was doing during the Bush years?
Well, obviously, there's no difference between how the two different administrations have been treated. And what you see are the left-wing media, the blogosphere, if you will, Salon, HuffPost, and so forth, will always rush to defend Holder because, don't forget, he's a progressive soldier. He's the guy who's helping fundamentally transform America. And what happens is that then the Washington Post doesn't get involved in laying a finger on Holder. And these are the only people that the folks in the Justice Department care about. They worry about the New York Times editorial page, the Washington Post, and the left-wing blogosphere. And if they aren't criticizing Eric Holder is going to keep doing what he's doing.
Wow. Well, Eric Holder, though, was the first Attorney General in my memory who was actually censured by the House of Representatives. That didn't seem to make any impression. That was over the Fast and Furious scandal, the gun running scandal. Maybe you could explain a little bit of how that led to his censure.
Well, it's because Eric Holder didn't tell the truth in front of Congress and refused to turn over documents. And it went like this. The Justice Department had a program to flood Mexico with guns. It purchased guns in the United States, and they flooded Mexico. Now, a lot of people say it's because they wanted to then argue that gun sales should be curtailed if nobody knew where the guns were coming from. So, when this scandal broke, Congress wanted documents. Congress wanted to know when Eric Holder knew about the program. And Eric Holder didn't tell the truth to Congress. He said, I learned about it just a couple of weeks ago, but we know that's not true. It was a long, long time before that. And they wouldn't turn over documents. So he was found in contempt of Congress. Contempt. But the most the devastating thing about it, John, is his reaction to it. Holder doesn't take it seriously. Whenever he's in front of Darrell Issa, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, he treats Issa with contempt. He says terrible things about Congress. This is a guy who simply does not believe he has done anything wrong.
Well, you seem to have exposed a fundamental problem in our system of government, which is if we have law enforcement officials, cabinet rank members, who simply ignore the law, they follow the rule of men rather than the rule of law, our system can't really take that strain very easily, because Congress, if it subpoenas the Attorney General, if it basically holds him in contempt, who enforces that? In other words, to paraphrase Joseph Stalin, can Congress do anything? How many divisions does it really have?
Well, that's right. And here you're, of course, referring to the Pope, and that's perhaps an apt analogy, because it really takes, to hold someone to account who's this lawless, you have to reach down deep into the Constitution and find things the founders put there, like the power of the purse. The power of the purse is the power of the House to defund people, to simply not give them any more money. But it's something that this Republican House leadership has been reluctant to use. Senator Mike Lee of Utah has called on the House to use the power of the purse to end Obamacare. But if they won't use the power of the purse to end something that's wildly unpopular, it's hard for me to believe they'll use the power of the purse to fight back against Holder.
Well, specifically, if you could wave your magic legislative wand, how would you deal with the rogue Justice Department? What uses would you make of the power of the purse to try to rein them in?
Great question. It's so simple to do. You talk to Chairman Frank Wolf on the House Appropriations Committee, who's in charge of justice, and you list 10 units of justice that are causing the most mischief, whether it's ATF, whether it's the Civil Rights Division, who's always asking for more money, whether it's whatever agency in the department, and you simply line item them out, and you say, okay, this group of 50 mischief makers are no longer going to get government salaries, or we're going to close down this tiny little operation that's causing problems. It's very simple to do. Americans would love it if Congress actually flexed its muscle and did something about Eric Holder's corruption.
Well, as we know, Congress's muscles have atrophied for many years. Not only have they ignored government scandals, but look at all the power they've surrendered to independent regulatory agencies that basically rule our lives far more than Congress ever had. They have independent power, independent authority, independent budgets. So the problem here seems to me that you don't really have, the policemen seem to be asleep or seem to have been co-opted. The media doesn't hold Eric Holder to account. Congress seems to be floundering about. They did pass a contempt resolution in the House against Eric Holder, but they can't enforce it because it has to be enforced by the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, and he works for Eric Holder. So given all of that, though, is there there seem to be signs, though, that with the NSA eavesdropping, with the IRS scandal, that doesn't directly involve Eric Holder, but peripherally he seems to show no interest in investigating matters. Do you think this can go on for the entire second term of the Obama administration, or do you think there will be a reckoning in accounting?
Yeah, unfortunately, I actually think it can go on. I have seen very little inclination from leadership to do anything really effective against Holder. But more importantly, John, and this is something that I think we've talked about, is I don't think Republicans quite understand what they're up against with people like Holder and his minions. They're facing a sort of Democrat, energized, activist, progressive Democrat that they've never seen before. This is the radicals of the 60s now sitting in the corner offices.
The Saul Alinsky acolytes.
Yeah, and they don't understand it. They think it's 1994 and the rules still apply, but it doesn't. And Holder is a great representation of that. All of the inability to catch this guy and make him accountable is a symptom of what I'm talking about. This is a different breed of radical Democrats in power.
Well, last question for you is how Eric Holder has managed to derail or deflect attempts to pursue voter integrity, to cut down on voter fraud in America. Now, the Supreme Court recently said the states that had been covered for 50-odd years under the Voting Rights Act, they could not specifically be targeted for pre-clearance provisions. They didn't have to go mother may I to the Justice Department for every change that they made in an election law. And Holder seems to have ignored that. And what is he doing to the state of Texas to try to subvert their voter ID law, for example?
Yeah, the Supreme Court said Texas shouldn't have to get approval in Washington for every election law. And Eric Holder has gotten involved in a lawsuit there to bring them back under federal control. And this just shows you these people know how to use power. For a couple of days after Holder attempted to bring Texas back under federal control, Republicans were shocked by it. And that gets to my point. You've got to get past the shock, because this guy is a different breed. He knows how to use power. He wants Texas back under federal control. He may do the same to other states, South Carolina maybe, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. All of these are places that the people in the Justice Department have a deep cultural dislike of and would like to see them under federal control.
Last point, what has happened in Louisiana? What has the Justice Department done to Louisiana's Secretary of State?
Yeah, this is amazing. Eric Holder, in an effort to get more welfare recipients on the voter rolls, actually sent Civil Rights Division people into their welfare offices wearing wires with electronic surveillance and recording equipment to see if Louisiana state officials were pushing voter registration on these phony, disguised Justice Department officials disguised as welfare recipients. When not enough of them got voter registration forms pushed in their face, the Justice Department sued Louisiana under motor voter. It's an outrageous behavior that the Secretary of State of Louisiana called Gestapo tactics.
Well, I'm glad to see that the limited enforcement and prosecutorial powers of the Justice Department are being spent so wisely and so efficiently. After all, we don't have any other problems to worry about, do we?
And avert your eyes from the IRS officials who leaked internal tax applications to ProPublica. That's a felony, but there's no prosecutions there.
Well, Christian, I urge people to get your book, Injustice, which you can get in good bookstores and at Amazon. And thank you so much for being with us. We'll have you back.
Thanks, John. Take care.
Thanks. This is John Funn sitting in for Steve Malzberg, and we have one more segment to go in today's show, so please stay with us. We'll be right back.
The Steve Malzberg Show.
I love you, son, so it hurts when you say I hate you. I'm your mother. I'm tired of you disrespecting me when you don't get your way. I work hard to make sure you have everything you need. I should be able to ask you to get out of bed in the morning without a fight. So from now on, things are going to be different. I ordered the Total Transformation Program. We're not going to scream and fight anymore. I'm going to tell you what to do in a different way, and you're going to do it. You're not going to call me ugly names anymore, and if you do, you're going to get consequences that'll keep you from calling me ugly names. We're not going to do things your way anymore, son. We're going to do things the Total Transformation way.
Get the Total Transformation free. Just order the program, tell us how it works for you, and you can keep it for free. Call 1-888-577-9520. 1-888-577-9520. Call now. Call 1-888-577-9520. 1-888-577-9520.
Here's today's silver shortage update from Lear Capital.
Reports keep coming, the shortage is growing. Twice already this year, the U.S. Mint has run out. Last time this happened, the silver price jumped 40%. It's time to take advantage with this special offer from Lear Capital.
For a limited time, buy 20 new silver polar bear coins and get one free. The only 1.5 ounce coin on the market. It's minted with the finest silver, carries a government guarantee, and is eligible for IRAs. The silver polar bear is available exclusively from Lear Capital. But don't wait. Silver supplies are shrinking and availability is not guaranteed. This offer is limited to a minimum purchase of $5,000. Call right now. 800-634-0482. 800-634-0482. Call Lear Capital now. 800-634-0482.
Attention hip implant patients. Are you in constant pain? Have you received a letter from your doctor about your implant? Have you had or need a revision surgery? Do you have high levels of metal, chromium, or cobalt in your blood? Over 90,000 hip implant devices have been recalled due to defects and failures resulting in revision or replacement surgery. If you have a recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-1530 to see if your implant is affected by the recalls. If you or a loved one has a defective or recalled hip implant, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-460-1530. That's 800-460-1530. Protect your legal rights today. Call 800-460-1530. This is an advertisement, not valid in all states. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. iLawsuit.com is an advertising group that represents lawyers advertising their services and is a free matching service for consumers. It is not a law firm or lawyer referral service.
Hi, this is Mike Reagan. Folks ask me, what would Ronald Reagan do if he were with us today? I believe the first thing he'd do is stop Obamacare. Already it's in effect, with higher taxes, hidden fees, skyrocketing insurance rates, big Medicare cuts, and some insurance plans are hit with a 40% tax. Protect yourself by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law, giving you the strategies, tips, and loopholes you need to know. If you're insured on Medicare, a business owner, a medical professional, just about anyone, you need this book. Get the #1 bestseller, the Obamacare Survival Guide, at bookstores everywhere. Or get our special $4.95 offer and save $15 off the cover price by going now to Obamacare911.com. Obamacare911.com. That's Obamacare911.com.
You've heard the allegations on the news, and during the big game, pro football players have been using deer antler velvet to get a competitive edge. Banned at the London Games for its performance-enhancing qualities. Forbidden in major sports leagues for being an unfair advantage to athletes. Deer antler velvet is now in stock and available to try for free for a limited time only. Athletes have been using it for years for increased strength, increased endurance, muscle mass stress reduction, and yes, greatly enhanced libido. Everyone's talking about this miracle substance so powerful, it's being banned by professional sports organizations, but for a limited time, it's being made available to the general public. Best of all, you can try it for free by calling 800-678-5153. That's right, get Superior Velvet for free. If you're looking to boost your performance on the field and between the sheets, get the most powerful, proven product used by athletes for years now for free. Claim your free bottle today by calling 800-678-5153. That's 800-678-5153. Again, 800-678-5153.
Microphones hot. Satellite link established. Studio lights illuminated. Cameras rolling. Audio and video encoders firing ones and zeros. Internet stream is streaming. The most technology-advanced radio show is on the air. Here's the captain of this enterprise, Steve Malzberg.
Hi, I'm John Fund. The captain is not in his command chair today. I'm his simple, humble lieutenant sitting in for Steve Malzberg, who will be back next week. Anyway, we have a call that we want to check, and she's been very patient. It's Patricia from New York. Please come in and welcome to Newsmax TV.
Good evening, John. You are a great replacement. I was in my car and my blood was boiling. The topics you have covered is exactly how I feel. It's like we the people have our hands tied behind our back. We want changes. There's a broken government, no accountability. And I'm from Cohoes, New York. And
where's that, by the way?
That is outside Albany, the capital.
Okay. Well, you've seen all the problems with government up there. It's right in your backyard.
Oh my goodness, have I ever? Yes.
Anyway, please go ahead.
Yes, and what really appalls me is that I did the channels of government contacting, the right officials, because we have a waste incinerator plant, and it's under the lightweight aggregate company, but they make all their money burning waste. And we had an incident that leaked noxious fumes, and I've been on, every day trying to look into this matter here and uncovered documents after document with the DEC, EPA, contacted the assemblyman, and he understands, but, there's only so much you can do.
Well,
and it's like, people want change, but where do you go?
So who owns
they
this?
Have these,
who owns this device?
It's publicly owned. It's now it's Nordlight, but it's True to be. It's another company from Spain.
The public entity has built this, but it's managed by a private company from overseas.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I research further into what they're actually burning, oh my God, I'm telling you, it is so alarming. It really is.
Well,
and, people have symptoms. People have been complaining, and I didn't know. I've been here since 1995. I did not know that we had the only waste combustion facility in New York State. It's in Cohoes, New York. It borders Cohoes and Colony.
Gee, I guess that wasn't factored into your real estate values when you bought, probably.
No,
listen,
and let me tell you.
Let me just give you a suggestion. How many people in your neighborhood or your town are upset about this that you think you can,
quite a bit. Oh, there's numerous people. It's Cohoes, the city that cares. I talked to the assemblyman, John McDonald, and he backs me on this. But the person who really covered, explicitly was Brian Nearing of the Times-Union, and unfortunately, he took the sabbatical. Go figure.
Look, there's still things you can do. First of all, there are a lot of blogs, not only with conventional media sources, but out there that are watchdog blogs. There's the Franklin Center. If you Google Franklin Center for Investigative Journalism, you might want to contact them. They may have a reporter there. They're a good watchdog organization. I think you need to go to the blogs. And I think remember, there's an old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
That's right. I believe in that wholeheartedly.
Well, if you get enough steam up on the blogs,
and their permit is up. That's why I'm all fired up here.
Exactly.
Their permit is up, and after being fined and violated.
Well, you need to get that date out there and make that a red letter date that people can rally around, that you've got to stop it and at least delay or have some kind of audit of this waste device. So listen, Patricia, good luck with your struggle up there, but you're practicing citizen activism and citizen journalism, I hope, and you may be able to accomplish something more than you possibly can imagine. There are other ways of putting fires under government officials and making them act. So thanks so much. Good luck.
You again, John.
Thank you. Well, that's our show for today, and thank you for tuning in. Steve Malzberg, Captain Malzberg, will be back on Monday with an exciting lineup of guests. I've really enjoyed sitting in and learning more about all of these subjects, and I hope that you have too. So I'm John Fund for Newsmax TV. Thank you for tuning in, and Steve Malzberg will be back